She said you came right out.
Okay, we'll get started. Pledge allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and
to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. The agenda, pledge allegiance, approval of minutes, President's remarks, report from the Rec and Parks Advisory Committee, report from Marine Activities Advisory Committee, County Commissioners report, General Managers report, public comment, media questions, old business, motion renaming areas surrounding and including Veterans Memorial, pending action list, new business, beach parking daily pass permit, motion IRS matter, CPI actions, Bob Thompson Advisory Committee appointments, and adjournment. Any additions or changes to the agenda?
Yeah, Mr. Tom.
Yes, sir.
We might insert down here a new business, have a discussion on the possible change, have a possible change of a meeting date so it doesn't conflict with county commissioners. Day of the week.
Excuse me, what meeting?
This meeting, our meeting
Oh,
is always the same time as the county.
The regular
commissioners
board meeting.
So our board meeting.
I have a second for that addition to the agenda. Those in favor? Okay. Opposed? None? Okay. Any other changes?
Can we remove the, my motion, the renaming of the Veterans Park? I'm still waiting for some more documentation. I want to remove the motion, my motion for the renaming. We're still working on getting some additional documentation.
Okay.
Thank you.
You can withdraw that. Other changes? Dave?
Yeah, if the rest of the board agrees. I had a meeting with Jim Trummel and Joe Moore on Friday. This is something we tried to set up from early in the week, and the first opportunity turned out to be 2 o'clock on Friday afternoon. I had suggested an agenda item in the anticipation that I would have something to say at the meeting about this, but that agenda item was not specific enough and it was rejected by our secretary. It's up to the board. I've submitted a report to everybody. There are some specific recommendations on the report that I submitted. I got the report out yesterday, and it was a little late yesterday because I passed it by Joe Moore just to make sure, since I was, talking about what he said, that it was okay. And I have an email back, and he agreed that in fact it is. I think there are some items on the recommendations. Some of them are, looking to the future to correct some of the things that have been issues, certainly in this election, and I think not just this one. I say election, I should say, it was candidate application process. So at any rate, I offered that as a agenda item.
Second.
Yes.
I have not read it yet because it was late yesterday. I apologize. I was working.
No, that's okay. I have this, Terry. You don't have to read it now or anything.
Yeah.
Yes.
Report a meeting with Joe Moore on Friday.
Yes.
Yeah, I
And this was sent out via email.
Yesterday afternoon.
Yes.
Yes.
I didn't get a chance to do it.
I've not seen it either.
There is a copy of it.
And what's the purpose of trying to put it on the agenda?
Well, the purpose of trying to put it on the agenda is that there are some recommendations that impact the current election. There are some things that should be changed, okay, I believe, at any rate. And I think that there have been issues and questions raised concerning, I'm talking about not the election process, but the period before the election, the application process. And so in some cases, the action is immediate, or it should be immediate, in my opinion. And in other cases, the actions are things that we should do to straighten out the process for the future. I've tried to explain in the memo, I
In
apologize.
future elections, you mean?
Yes.
Okay.
Future elections, but really, again, I'm only talking about the period from February 1st, when a search committee is appointed, to May 10th, as it currently stands. Actually, May 30th, when the Elections Committee takes over. And again, I won't apologize for being late, because that's the earliest I could get the meeting with Joe Moore, and I worked on it over the weekend, and I had to double check with Joe Moore to make sure that he agreed with what I said.
Let me try to make it. Your purpose in wanting to put it on the agenda is for the board to take action, but mostly related to the next election?
Mostly related to this. Actually, there are some. First of all, there's an inconsistency between two documents. Okay, the bylaws and the
With regard to the
NMLS
date.
with regard to the date.
Right.
There are also issues regarding the role of the search committee, which is, I guess, in place now, and that was the subject of discussion. And there are also issues regarding the eligibility of candidates, and some of these things were addressed in Joe's memo. And in going through the memo, and I hope I made it clear in here, we addressed each one of those issues. I think the primary consideration is what scope does the board have in terms of interpreting the bylaws and creating resolutions to expand upon the bylaws or to clarify the bylaws. I mean, that's kind of a fundamental issue. Now, we did, as a board, do something which we got a legal opinion, and the legal opinion said, no, we were incorrect in doing that. Okay, that was
Right.
regarding
There's been an
the-
awful lot of correspondence back and forth on this subject.
Yes, there has been, yeah.
Yeah, amongst the directors and attorneys, several meetings with attorneys and all. I'm hard pressed to know why we would want to take action or really have it as an agenda item at this late. You haven't seen
Well,
it. I'm just sort of getting it. It mostly relates, it sounds like, to the future.
I would like to not discuss it today until I have a chance to.
Well,
I've read everything
Okay,
else.
yeah,
He's got a motion. I think you've made a motion. You need a second and a vote to
No, I
get it on the
haven't.
agenda.
I
have a
second.
I've had a little dialogue. You
No,
got
no,
it. Fine.
you got a
second.
I have a second. And if you
Okay.
think it's better off, you were better off to put this off, that's fine. Except that I think, I don't disagree with that, because this is a complicated issue.
Right.
Actually, issues.
Issues.
But on the other hand, right now, we have inconsistencies which should be explained to the people who are, A, becoming candidates, and B, who are looking at the candidates and going to vote for them. It should be straightened out. Some of these issues should be straightened out fairly quickly, if not today, then when? Not the next meeting, I think.
I read the document last night. All the things you talked about in the future, I agree with most of those things, but it's not all in the day we have to deal with. I guess my question, Dave, is what are you expecting, or what is your goal with regard to this coming up? What are you trying to accomplish?
This meeting,
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good question. Okay, I specifically would refer you to the webpage and the documents which are on the webpage currently. There's an application form. There's and there's directions. These stem back to, I don't know when they were developed, but a good long time ago. And before the bylaws were changed to create a search rather than a nominating committee. And in fact, they're wrong. I mean, there are things in there which are just not wrong, are not correct. They should simply be corrected. If you read the most recent announcement, and I've pointed this out to Teresa, the wording in that recent announcement gives the wrong implication regarding what's going to happen to when a candidate has interest in a, I have to read it, but these things should be changed. I mean, they should just be clarified. And, you know, I can make a simple list of those and say, look, can we do this right away? But it's important to this election that they be done right. The date, for an example, an easy one is, yeah, we can say here in the board meeting that the date in M06 was incorrect by advice of counsel. Well, that could go on the webpage. By the way, since M06 is on the webpage, the date in M06 is incorrect by advice of counsel, and the correct date is May 10th. There is a statement on the webpage right now that says your property will be inspected. That's not correct. That's not correct. And, you know, and could that have a dampening effect on people who wanted to become candidates? Again, I've addressed that in here. And that, I mean, it's not a recommendation. That thing should purely and simply be removed.
Dave, is there a way for you, I mean, this is asking for more work and where you've obviously put a lot of work into it already, but is it possible for you to redraft what's on the website right now in the way that you think it should appear and simply email it to everybody?
You can't hear back.
Yeah, Dan is asking if I could simply redraft it, and in fact, I've done it.
Oh, you have?
I've done it. Now, if we could agree that I could send it to everybody, you read it, you give it the comments, and can agree offline that this is what we'll do, and everybody else can see it, of course, at the same time. Anybody wants it, it would be fine. Their changes, I think, can be made relatively simple, and they'll get us back on track to what we should be doing. And that has been done, and it's been done in conjunction with a draft, emphasized draft resolution for a search committee, which we do not presently have. We have one for the elections committee, but not a search committee.
I agree that and Dave and I have talked about this, that there is clearly some value in putting together a guideline for the search committee of what can be said and what can't, what the date is. The dates do conflict with each other, but we've already concerned, I said it from the beginning, the bylaws take precedence over anything that's in another document that we may or may not have passed, so we need to fix that. You know, as far as this year's election, I don't want to give the impression that things are completely off track, because they're absolutely not. Now, I will say that the February 1st date to establish the search committee did not get met because, frankly, I was in West Virginia trying to help take care of my 88-year-old mother-in-law who was having to give up her home for the first time after 20 years of living there and getting her relocated. So, frankly, my brain was a little someplace else, taking care of a family member. But by the way, the committee for search committee has many times has not been established by February 1st, so this isn't the first year that that's happened. Okay, so that's not the end of the world. The committee is functioning. They have a list of people they're calling, so I don't want to give the impression to the community or anybody else that things are that far off. What Dave is talking about is interpretations of language as to whether or something is a requirement or not. Whether it's a requirement or not, frankly, if your property is of such a state that you would worry about having your property looked at by Ocean Pines, then you might want to rethink your future. Okay? But for right now, I'm going to call the vote as to whether we add this to the agenda or not. All those in favor? Opposed? Okay, working forward, I'll be more than happy to get a list from Dave.
Whoa, I need to count on that, please. Okay. Opposed were
4.
I'll abstain since it was Mark.
1, 2, 3,
Yeah,
4.
I oppose it now.
What are you doing?
I'm opposed.
Opposed, 5, 6.
6 opposed.
6 with 1 abstention.
Okay.
And I think it's really important to get this done for cosmetic reasons and accuracy and that sort of thing.
Well, we've already had half of a debate from Tom Terry without getting the other half from me, so I can see where this is going, and we could take a lot more time, and
No,
we
we're
would.
not.
Tom, I'd just like to echo what you said, and for the benefit of not people around this table, but for the broader audience, that there is no great problem, as I understand it, with the election. I mean, I've kept up with all the emails back and forth, and it's easy for people to get the impression that there's this flawed process underway, and there's maybe even some of the emails I've read suggest perhaps even more than that, some conspiracy to keep certain candidates off the ballot. Well, that's not the case at all. We do need to get clarified some of the things, but the most important thing that relates to this election, I think, is the date conflict between the bylaws and the resolution that this board passed a year or so ago, which is obviously in conflict with the bylaws. And we didn't know it at the time. We should have known it, but we didn't know it. So that could be
Actually,
easily,
we were notified of that conflict.
at the time we did it.
Yeah, we just didn't realize the influence from that.
Well, we need to get that changed.
Just
Let's
let us
move on.
know.
You know,
Let's
this
move
is,
on.
I'm sorry, now
Let's move on.
I'm sorry, you piled on, so let's not move
All
on.
right, okay, fine.
I mean, Tom said something and
All
I
right,
passed it,
you're
then
right, you're right.
you piled, well, guess what? I mean, the real difficulty is whether or not we're following what's in the bylaws or not. Now, I'm telling you that the bylaws are very clear, I mean, really clear, about establishing a search committee.
Correct.
And we have not done it. We do not have a search committee.
Yes, we
Period.
do.
No, we don't. Not according to the, not constituted according to the bylaws. We don't, you know. Now,
This committee-
is that the end of the world?
Excuse me,
No.
I'm
All
done
right.
with this stuff. At this point, this board approved Jim Bessler to be the chairman. Weissler to establish his committee, he did. He has Tom Sandusky, Carol Ludwig, Ron Fisher. He has one vacancy of the four with him.
That's not what the bylaws say. It doesn't say approve, it says approve everybody on it. It has to be, each candidate has to be.
By when, Dave?
By February 1st.
You want to keep this up?
By February 1st.
When was your search committee established?
You want
Mr.
to-
Stevens?
What has that got to do with it?
Point of order.
Whether or not I was,
Public comment.
whether or not I was wrong or not, whether or not I screwed up or not, has nothing to do with whether or not we get to continue.
Okay, so the search committee is made up of Jim Weissler, Tom Sandusky, Carol Ludwig, Ron Fisher, and there is one vacancy right now. Do I have a motion to approve that panel?
I'll move the approval.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it for purposes of discussion. I'd like to make an opening comment. We have already approved Mr. Weissler
Yes, we have.
as chair.
Correct,
We have
last
not-
month.
We did not approve the other members of that committee. If in fact it's necessary for the board to approve the members of that committee, then obviously we should do that. But you know, the real point here, Mr. President, and it is a point of order, is that we have just written an agenda and thrown it away. So either, I would recommend that we just table this whole discussion, go back to the agenda. and move
I
to the
agree,
meeting.
because I was perfectly willing to stop at the point when people started debating the issues, and frankly saying things that are blatantly incorrect, so.
Moving on to the approval of the minutes. March 20th.
Absolutely. Minutes?
Minutes.
Do we approve the agenda?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. I think so.
The minutes of the March 2nd, 20th meeting?
Yeah.
I do have one correction. I have two corrections, actually.
Why don't you stay in trouble?
On page two, at the top, second line, there's reference to the 4th District Court. Well, it's not the District Court, it's the Court of Appeals of the 4th Circuit. Might seem a technical matter, but there's a big difference between a District Court,
Right.
which is, okay? And the next change I would like to offer is on the next page, page 3, where it says, under the dog park update, it says Pete Gomsek read the committee members as follows. No. In response to a request from Pete Gomsek, and it was really, I believe, Ray Unger who read the names of the committee. So all I did was request to know who was on the dog park committee, Ray, you'll recall, and then you read them off, correct?
Yep.
Okay. I don't want to be known to be interfering in the dog park committee. And that's it.
Here.
Okay. Motion to approve.
Motion approved.
Aye.
Objection? Want to start off my remarks by getting, some acclamation to the board. We've got a letter from the county school system asking for our participation in the and a group of citizens who are going to be having a meet and greet with the 3 finalists for the superintendent of schools that are running for the job. I've asked Bill to represent us, being a past principal, to represent us in that meeting. There's no objection. Bill will be doing that for us. Okay? We did, and we'll probably hear a little more about this later, but just so everybody knows, we did file the appeal to the IRS yesterday on time. And we have one piece of action that was done via emails having to do with an opportunity to save some money by doing some additional work on the golf course, which via emails was approved. Pete, I believe you have these are the copies of the emails from all the board members approving, agreeing to it, but I want to do it in public. So,
Yeah, I would like to offer a motion to affirm what the action previously taken by email, and it reads as follows. And I do have it in writing, so maybe just test it out. Okay. Like last night before the power went out. Hi, Val. The motion is very simply, the board hereby affirms its April 3, 2012 approval conducted by email of the $32,500 capital expenditure to fund the cost of certain golf drainage project work on hole number 7 to be performed immediately in conjunction with the greens replacement project.
second. Discussion? Reaffirm the emails. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? No. Thank you. Okay. Roy, you want to come up and join us up here? Ask Roy Foreman to join us today and give us an update on the Rec and Parks Advisory Committee and what that group's up to.
Good morning, everybody.
Morning.
Do you want me just to go over what I have given to you guys, or do you want me to read it, or what do you want me to do, or ask questions? I'm not sure how you want
Let's
me to
go through it verbally and then we can.
Okay. We have 4 things that we're looking at and on the committee. The first one is replacing the current rug here in the acetate room. Sonia has been very unhappy with this rug for a lot of reasons. She'd like to have a hard surface flooring of some kind that would make the room more useful for a lot more things than what is being used currently. At the present time, as a committee, we're discussing she brought in some types of flooring at the last meeting we had, and we decided also as a committee that we would like to have somebody come in who knows more about flooring than we do, knows about the different kinds of flooring, the pros and cons and things of that nature, and give us a sort of a presentation on what options we have as far as what would work well in here. So at the present time, that's where we are at this moment. We're exploring this idea and going forward with that idea. The other thing we're looking at is in regards to the playgrounds. The playgrounds have currently wood mulch as a surface. We had a presentation done in March by a gentleman by the name of Brian Lewis from he was from West Recreation, and he gave us a presentation. I have copies. I don't have a copy for everybody, but I certainly can spread around. This is the presentation he gave to us about the different various kinds of mulch and other hard surfaces that can be used. Some are rubberized surfaces and things of that nature. And what we're doing right now is we're looking at the various parks, we're ranking them, and talking about how much each one gets utilized. So that certainly is a big factor. And based upon this ranking and also the determination of utilization, we're going to look at which ones to start looking at as far as doing something with them. And also, we're going to look at each park and decide what kind of surface was best fit for that particular park, as based upon cost and safety. And some of these parks, I don't know, we talked a little bit about also the fact that if we just take and replace what's there, that's one thing. But if you take and put in something that's brand new, it may fall under there are new laws that regard safety and things that the surfaces have to be impact in regards to whether a child falls on it, whether the surface will absorb that fall and not hurt the child. So those are kind of things that if we do something that's brand new at a particular park, then we have to be careful that we follow those new guidelines and new laws that they have regarding child safety.
What are you getting information on the laws?
The company that came in, they were very aware.
West is providing that information to you.
Yeah, they were very up date on the various new laws that regard child safety and or impact and things of that nature are concerned.
Just as a suggestion, when you prepare your final recommendation to the board, make sure you're in detail about what those issues are.
Okay.
So that the general manager can check them as we go through.
Okay. We can do that, sure.
And just to make sure everyone, they understand, they're working hand in hand with Sonia, and the representative who came in to speak was informed in advance of his arrival that we appreciated his input, but he would have to compete for the business. There would be an RFP.
Right.
And he would have to, so I want to make sure that the board is aware of that.
He just, one of our committee members arranged for this presentation, so he's not the only person we're looking at. And we haven't, I mean, we're still in the very rudimentary elements of looking at this whole project. There's still a lot of things to talk about and discuss before we even get into talking about what.
Do we have any history on, I guess, safety in our playgrounds? I mean, accidents, numbers, that kind of thing? I mean, I'm just trying to understand if there's an issue, I mean, or how big an issue there might be.
Well, from what he told us, we have, he gave us this pamphlet here that talks about the different kinds of surfaces, and also there is various laws that regard if a child falls from a certain height and things of that nature, the surface has to be a certain grade, a certain kind, to be able to absorb that fall and not have and injure the child.
That would be relevant to replacing in something new.
Yeah.
If we're replacing with what we've got, I'm just wondering how big.
Well, exactly. If it's something that's something we sort of touched upon in the last meeting. If it's a surface that we're just taking and removing and replacing with the same thing, then it really doesn't fall under the new laws and so forth. But if we're taking like Mankin Creek is going under a pretty good restoration right now, if we go in there and put a brand new surface that was not there before of a new type, then I think we're going to fall under these guidelines that the state has in regarding impacts and things of that nature. And we have to look at what kind of surface goes in there, as far as what kind of equipment is available and how it's going to be used and so forth.
Yeah. So basically, you're saying that there ought to be a pretty good reason for doing it.
Yeah. Any other questions about that? The third thing we're looking at is simply we've there is the Adopt a Parks program that Sonia has instituted. We also have, and our committee, members of the committee are responsible for going around to different parks and looking at them, and we're compiling a notebook like this that has all the parks in it, and each one will have a write-up given by the committee member that will go and look at that park. And the idea of that is to observe what's there, see what needs to be done, if anything needs to be done, make a list of it, so we can have a compilation of it, so we can start bringing things to your all's attention, park by park, if there needs to be things that need to be done. It's simply a way of us keeping track of what's happening in the parks and what's going on. The last thing is we're working on the adding to the comprehensive program for the next 10 years. Sonia has asked us to assist her in that. And the way we're doing that right now is the members are asked to email me with ideas and suggestions that they may have for the next 10 years, which are the things that we may want to do. And then I will give those to Sonia, and she will put those into the next new comprehensive program.
Just a comment. The carpet issue in here. This carpet issue in this room that we're seeing now is one of several issues, with all due respect to those who were involved in designing the equipment in the facility. It's one of several things that point out how it was equipped or done poorly, not appropriately. Any room, in my experience, my professional experience, any room that's a public room that's going to serve as a food service area should never have carpet in it due to mold and germs and other things with spillage that should happen. So that's something that absolutely needs to be done. And also, from my experience in recent years, most of the playgrounds, the young people, it's a rubberized surface. So if we get into changing, that's probably going to be that way.
There are, the company that came out and did the presentation has done several places. Northside Park is an area that they've done. They've also done a number of the elementary schools. VIS, Ocean City Elementary School, have been done. Playgrounds have been done. So those are, and they have different types of surfaces. Not all those are not the same kind of surface. So if any committee member would like to go out and see one of those places, this is the kind of work that they do. This is the kind of services that we're looking at. Those are just examples. I think also Decatur Park has several different kinds of surfaces that this company has done.
Roy, with respect to item 3, adopt the park, and item 4, the 10-year plan work that your committee is doing, are you willing to have your name and email address put up on our website and send out via e-blast so the community can communicate ideas to you?
I have no problem with that.
If you give it to Teresa, she'll be
Okay.
happy to put it
I
up.
think Teresa, I think you have that, don't you, Teresa?
Good idea.
Yeah.
Good. Well, thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, thank you,
and the whole
gentlemen.
committee.
Ladies.
Good work. Thank you. Got a very good working relationship with Sutton and the team. Stronger.
I'll do a quick report on what the Marine Advisory Committee is. They would like the board or Robert to make some simple changes in some regulations that we've had over here for many, many years. We have some regulations against putting up temporary barriers of a bad storm, like sandbags. And there have been some properties at storms over the last couple of years that have sustained damage because of water coming over the bulkheads and the like. So we would simply, on a temporary basis, if something would come along, allow people to put up sandbags. The second thing is a long-term thing that's been going on for quite a while. They've been up for 40 years, 45 years. What the state and the county is doing now is making recommendations that when we do have to replace a section of bulkheading in Ocean Pines from this point on, it's not going to be wood, it'll be the composite material that doesn't break down, and the height of it should be 6 to 12 inches higher to compensate for higher water levels that they anticipate over the next 50 years. One clarification, the other simple clarification that we need, or what they're looking at, is nobody's allowed to go and to hook on to one of the bulkheads in Ocean Pines and tie a boat up, even on a temporary basis, that the water action can eventually loosen them up. There's nothing that says you can't go on the other side of it and put it in the ground to tie it up temporarily that way. They're simply asking if it's okay for a couple of hours, if somebody wants to go to the yacht club or visit a friend or something, to tie up to the bulkhead. So these are the things that Robert, I'm just, you got a copy of this thing, just figure out on how you're going to do it. And that's primarily it. But it's the long-term thing on replacing the bulkheads at a higher height, 6 to 12 inches higher than they are now. That will help protect in the future. Yes?
Two comments. Environmental and natural assets also is really paying close attention to the sea level rise, and also has that recommendation, and it's been recommended forever. Who's going to police the hours, not days, of the tie-up? If somebody ties up for a couple hours, how do you know that?
It's Dave's committee.
As an experienced voter, going back to my childhood when I had these little things in my tub, I do have a question about the first thing. Yeah, this issue of the sandbags and the whatever protection for storm will come up. Now, are you saying that's kind of going to be looked at as okay?
Yeah, I would say.
Because if you are, I have to bring up what I recall. I don't have a fault-headed lot, so I have no dog in this fight. But the argument was that neighbors who didn't go out and a whole bunch of So and it's against the rules.
Yeah.
And so I'm just wondering why we would change it.
Well, I really don't think it makes a lot of sense to change it because exactly what you said, if you have a long line of 7 or 8 homes and one person puts up sandbags, it's going to do no good because it's going to come over everybody else and go into yours.
Yeah, maybe.
So I agree.
You might avoid yours, but
That was simply
but other people are going to get more.
And if there is a definite emergency situation, there are emergency plans already in effect
That's
that
correct.
Bob would institute, if
Yeah,
there's
so
some
there-
major disaster or something that needs to be taken care of.
So there's not a recommendation.
You're off the hook about checking the votes.
Mr. President, could I ask that we have the general manager look at these 3 points and come back to the board formally with his recommendations on all 3?
And this is, as I see anyway, the last advisory committee recommendation of something that's coming.
For the reports.
For the reports, yeah. I would suggest strongly as a former chair of an advisory committee, it's always very frustrating for us to send in recommendations or whatever and then not get a response from the board. So if nothing else, I think we need to respond to these advisory committees, say thank you, and we're looking into them, whatever.
Could that not be the assignment of the liaison?
Yeah, I'm
Well,
going to do that.
Yes, whatever. But make sure-
Capture the sense of the board and go back.
Exactly.
No, I think that's a good idea. Yeah, because we do have more than 1 or 2 advisory boards that have raised the same issue.
Exactly, yeah.
They send things over and they don't hear anything back. To Dan's proposal these are 3 lines. I mean, I would agree. Bob, at the next meeting, if you could just respond to these at the next board meeting, I would appreciate it. Okay. Thanks, Rick. We had the written report from Judy Boggs. I read it last night, just the quick highlights. Looks like they're going to be lining Beauchamp Road for safety. They're going to be putting a required advertisement in the paper having to do with what the assessment would have to raise to in order for them to cover their budget. The details are in their court, not ours. But she allowed us to know about that. We'll give a copy of this if anybody wants it. And she mentioned the Arbor Day event, which was just held on April 12th. It was a very nice event again. They had the chorus there, Delmarva Chorus. The Ocean Ponds Garden Club does a really good job with that. And if you've not attended that, I would recommend you do it. It's not only is it a good event for Arbor Day, but after the official Arbor Day, they do a memorial of living memorial as they're planting the tree for the folks that have passed or family members that have passed in relation to the garden club. So it's a very nice event, well attended this year. So
Usually is.
anybody else want to raise an issue from this report? Dan?
Mr. President, I'd just like to highlight the tax situation so everybody has the numbers.
Yeah.
Worcester County's present tax rate is 70 cents per $100 of assessment. The proposed real property tax rate is going to be 78 cents per $100 of assessment. Do the math.
Right.
Thank you. Their fiscal year, I believe, is July 1.
July 1st.
Yeah.
They're having a public hearing on May 1st at 7 p.m. Okay, when you guys whisper at the other end of the table, we don't
Sorry.
know what you're saying. Sorry, okay.
That's the idea.
Okay, on to Mr. Thompson, General Manager's report. That would be it.
Okay, good morning. I'm going to run through some items today. I'll be relatively quick with it. Let's talk first about the Greens project. Maybe. All right, the Greens project is on time. We're real excited about. For those who haven't been out there, I thought I'd put some slides up so you guys can see the construction going on.
Are these temporary graphics we're looking at?
Temporary, yeah, they're actually, most are past now, actually. We're by the way on these, but this was some of the construction McDonald and Sons were doing on the property. This is where they're rebuilding a green. This is what happens after they pulled out all the materials. One thing I wanted to point out, and I brought a prop, which I usually do, and I won't take it out of the bag, but if anyone doubts how our greens were built, this is just one log out of many that they pulled out of our existing greens. Okay, it caught my eye. They had tons of this type of stuff, and the debris in the greens themselves, which obviously roots aren't going to grow through this when you're talking about, the greens project, and we talked about, the grass not growing deep enough. They found collapsed pipes. They found a lot of the soil was the old marsh soil that they used to build up the greens. It was a much needed project. Everything that we expected to find and then some under the greens was, logs and stumps and sticks that just aren't conducive to growth of proper green were all part of what was the underlying in the soil. So real excited that what we identified was actually there. This is what, just so everyone understands, this is what it looks like after the green's been completely cut out, all the material's been cut out, the green's been sized, and then they put the material back in. This is actual gravel and sand composite material, and that's what affects the drains, because the drains have been rebuilt and put down under that. And then the last, the way the greens and fairways are coming up for anybody who has not seen them, they're spectacular right now. Any questions about the greens? Yes, sir.
Where are we on projected completion date?
We're right on schedule. The greens all the grass will be down by the end of this week. Okay, all the sides in. They'll be doing some final touches. The majority of the sides already down for the holes. And today, through the end of the week, they'll finish the last two. 7 was the one where we did the petition where we could do some of the drainage work because it was such a tight hole that getting into it now was going to be cost effective. The estimate was about $15,000 savings by accomplishing it now while the hole was being disrupted. So that's the last hole. They'll have everything finalized. That should be by next 2 days. The sod will be down by the end of the week, all the little pieces. And they estimate to be here through the end of next week, just touch-up work, just any cleanup, touch-up, fix-up that they need to do.
And I understand there's a big event scheduled for June 1st.
Yes.
Share that, maybe ask you.
Ravensers tournament?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Kind of the opening of the course.
That'll be the opening, of course. That actually gives us between 5 and 7 weeks, and the reason I give a 2-week swing in there because it's not exactly 5 or 7, where some of the sod has been down since early last week. Well, they'll get the 7 weeks. The 7, as an example, will get between 5 and 6 weeks. And if you think about May's a long month, so we actually, everything is worked out actually ahead of schedule, and we're real pleased with what McDonald and Sons have done out there. Very pleased. If anybody hasn't gone out, go out and take it.
I would recommend doing that. I went out with Bob last Friday, and he rode me around and showed me what was going on. And the work appears to be really top quality, and there's pictures at the country club of some of the piping that was taken out. It looks like the sewer pipes from our ocean, from the beach club, and quite frankly,
They're filled up.
just completely solid. They couldn't have drained a drop of water through those things. So I would recommend people do that.
Bob, just to clarify, you said all but 2 of the 9 holes have already been sodded, right?
Yes.
So just 2 to go.
Yes, and they're actually
And they'll be
sodding
done
one
this
as
week.
as we're here, and they'll finalize the next day or so.
And then Mother Nature takes over.
Yes.
Oh,
Okay.
I was going to suggest he mount that piece of wood somewhere. For more fun.
Well, you know what, it's just,
Or shadow glasses.
even as recently as yesterday, someone's telling me that we're not doing the right project. So I kept my piece of wood. If you actually follow what we're doing, it makes sense. And what, the Hummel report, what the USGA report, everything that they said that people questioned actually turned out spot on. And with a lot of accuracy. I really think this is going to make a significant difference as we expected with our golf course. I mean, the greens are beautiful right now. The ones they put in are really phenomenal looking. And the drains are working. I was out there the day that they had put one of the holes in, and they watered from 10 to 1:30. I was there at 4:30, and the gentleman Kyle, who's running the project on site every day, actually walked me. We're about 30 yards away from the hole and popped the lid where the drain comes out, and you see the water still coming down clear as it can be, which shows how it kind of filters through the green the way it's supposed to and then comes out the way it's supposed to. So he was very pleased with that. And it's been an interesting process to watch.
Bob, I was hoping that you would bring in the tree stump from the green on number 3 hole, because it's about as big as Tom Terry. It was sitting sort of on the side. It was just pretty.
I thought about it, too much dirt.
Carry it around.
Huge.
Yeah, it was a little heavy to carry. I brought a
For
little
show
one.
and tell.
I'm sorry, Tom.
I feel better. I feel better
You
than
feel
you
better,
say.
Ray?
Yeah, I feel.
Moving on.
It wasn't quite that big.
Moving on. Moving on.
All right, any other questions about the greens?
Might be a good time to do that.
Okay, something that I want to talk to the board about, it does impact golf. We have T signs, okay? These are what our existing T signs look like. I want to bring them up because these are due to be replaced. As with everything that we have, we replace things as they deteriorate and wear down. Well, as we're doing the project, we start to look, and those who haven't been out there can walk and look at some of these. These signs are the existing T signs. I want to point some things out. This is one that's already fallen over, and you see where it's cracked all the way up. If you actually stood and looked, you can see where it's rotted all the way up into the posts. Okay, another angle of it. Again, I'm always real visual to show you what we're looking at. There's the bottom of one of them that hasn't fallen over. All of the signs that are there that have not been replaced with current T signs are all loose and will be replaced soon. Well, when you start to take a look at it, you have to wonder, what should we do about that? So we looked at what we're doing now. These are the new T signs, box, trash can holder item that's on the course. They're on holes 1 through 6 now. Okay? So I thought, all right, well, let's look at starting to replace with those. Okay, they're very nice looking. They do require maintenance. They require to be pulled out and stained. This is teak. They get stained every year. And they have to be washed every year. Okay? My recommendation is to replace it with some new aluminum T signs. And there's some significant cost savings in doing this. The existing T markers that they're called are $2,900 a piece. Okay, that includes the ball washer and trash can. It's a very, very nice unit. I mean, I'm not going to lie, they're spectacular. But when you're looking at price and we have to replace 12 of them, that's an extremely expensive endeavor to replace those. And it just doesn't, from my perspective, make a whole lot of sense. So when I was talking to the Casper folks, also talked to McDonald & Sons of what other courses you can, again, it's always opinion, but the fact of the matter, we need to replace them. I just can't in good conscience say this is how we should go. That's where we're recommending the aluminum ones. They are actually $884 each, and they include the pole, the sign, the basket, and the ball washer. Now, the reason I bring this up now is when we go to replace those, it exceeds, it's an unbudgeted replacement cost. So I need to bring it to the board, anything that's unbudgeted. And I do have a cost to replace all of them. I want to make sure I share that with you all today. I'd like to move forward and go ahead and get these replaced. It's a 6-week lag time to order them. It's $20,000 is what it is, as opposed to replace them all. And I have the bid, I just don't have it directly in front of me. Versus 30 to just do the 12 new boxes using the existing T marker. Now, what the initial proposal was to order half of them now at a cost of about 10 grand, and the other half once the others. But the actual cost increases because when you buy them all together, because they actually stamp the plate, it's actually more cost effective to do it. The other item that we're recommending that also saves some money is this is a very expensive plaque that goes on the side of these because it's custom cut out of the material, and then this is a custom plate that actually gets mounted on. Again, folks, you all can say, no, keep going with these. My concern is this, by not putting the marks on, we can put the markers down on the actual tee boxes, the little stone ones, much more cost effective. And when we have to move things, we don't have to replace this element in this box. Now, I'm sure at some point when someone went to replace them, these were fantastic, and they certainly match the bench. But at a cost at $2,900 to replace them, I just, in good conscience, can't do it. So I'm recommending that we move forward with the stamp. Well, if we do them, my recommendation is to do them all.
19.
19 of them. Okay. But I don't want to do it because when you order them all at once, it's cheaper to order them at one time. The maintenance of their aluminum with black paint on them. The cost to maintain those is far less than the teaking and the sanding and teaking we have to do from a maintenance on the others. And I also went out and looked at, there's my bid. There's a copy of what the bid is. Now, we did get 3 bids. I just want to pass. That's the one we're recommending. That's who Casper's used many times. The bids range from, that was 20, was that
20,191.
2191. That also includes the markers.
I was going to ask you that. That's included in here.
Yeah, it's included in that bid. And that's where the 884 is just the sign,
Right.
the mark in the box. To get the markers and everything ordered at once is 20,000. If I order just these boxes, it's close to 30 for the 12. So I can replace all 18, or actually 19 when you count the 19th hole, for 20.
And Bob, the markers include, again, all 19 holes in the T-box stones
Yes, sir.
in the 20 grand, roughly?
Yes. And I have the other bids. I have bids that range, that's the low bid. I have one at 22,240, which is 2 grand more, and another one at 25,357 for those same signs. Yes, sir.
That 884, does that include tax, installation?
No, the total bid is
That's
just
not
See it on
right.
here. See it on here.
That- I don't know where you got the 884, but that's the wrong number.
It's okay. Oh, Dan, I'm sorry. I have 2 bids. No. That, if you look at I got that email this
I'm
morning.
not playing
sorry.
poker with you.
What's the number on the, no, thank you. I passed out the current one. What's the number at the top right?
AAQ 1047.
No, there's a number, unit price 884 on this bid. What's that one?
Unit price is 989.
989. I'm sorry, that's the updated 88. That's what I had last night. But what I noticed late last night, I'll just give you the other bid so you can see where my difference came in. Thank you for pointing out. The number I'm giving you of 20,002 is the accurate bid. Pass these around. Just take a look. I didn't make copies of all these. Look at the size of the sign on these. These were the other 2 ones. It didn't match. I didn't know it until late last night, and that's what the original bid. This one was slightly smaller and signed. I couldn't bring it to you with 3 bids and have it inaccurate. So I got the sign that matches the same
The size
size.
matches.
They all match. The 3 bids now match. This was a smaller sign, and that's where the 884. I apologize, I didn't update that. That was done last night. It was late when I was reviewing these to make sure I had them. They're the current bids that match the one Mr. Stevens has in his hand. It's still 20,000 because this original bid was 18.5.
That's for a small.
Yeah, this smaller sign. I couldn't
14 by 22.
Yes, sir. As opposed to
Just
12
to
by
make
18.
sure just to make sure
Thank you, Dan. Yes.
the unit price for each as opposed to 8.
999. Would you come up?
There you go, that's the unit, that's the correct
I
unit.
printed this just before I came over. 989.
989, but the total is still the same.
20,000.
Yes.
20,191.
Correct. Correct.
Bob, you're really bringing it to us now because you feel like you need to move ahead with lead time.
Well, we have them falling,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
we need
yeah.
to replace some. And look, if you guys say, no, we really like these, keep going with them, look, I'm good with it if that's what you want to do. I don't see spending $2,900 for that.
How long ago did we have those? I mean, how long old are they?
As the holes got completed, they were being replaced with the holes.
So that's
drainage.
done 6.
From the
1
drainage
through 6.
program. So they're not really
No.
all that old.
No?
No, and it's not discarding those because they're old, it's just that to match those is
They're so
really
expensive.
expensive.
Correct.
So he suggested taking a different approach and get a less costly, but maybe perhaps classier combined with the yardage
The
market.
ones that are falling down are the really, really old.
Yeah,
Well,
they're- right.
those are the really, really,
Yeah.
And we have 9 on
Lower
the,
maintenance.
we have 7, 8, 9, and then we have 11 through 18 all need to be replaced with the old ones. Yes, sir.
Tom?
Mr. President, because we're discussing this now, I would like to put a motion on the table to approve switching to the new signs for $20,191.23.
Have a second?
Second.
Terry, second?
You did it. He seconded.
Yeah, I just wanted to discuss it.
Too quick.
You had, is the replacement program and the expansion program, is that in the current year budget? Not for this particular expenditure, but for an equivalent expenditure.
We have budgeted to replace the signs, not at the number for the new ones. They're in the budget for the 2,900 per sign.
You want to do it this fiscal year, right?
Yeah, I want to
And
do it.
it's not
now.
in this fiscal
They're
year
not
budget.
this year. No, it's
No,
like-
but-
Right, right.
If I'm not mistaken, you're asking if they need to be
have
replaced with one of
replacement
those?
signs.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is that what you're asking? Like,
Yeah,
if
I'm
one
asking-
fell down and you need to replace it?
We have
Is
money
there
set
money in the
aside
budget for
for it.
that?
Yes, for replacement of the signs.
Okay, that'll be basically in the operational maintenance budget.
Yes, sir. But it's a reserve for replacement.
No, it's not a ma-
It's a
no, it's not.
replacement
It's a
item.
capital item.
Yes, for
It's a capital
replacement.
item, not operating item. It's not an operating expense item, it's a capital item.
Okay, we have those listed as a capital item.
Right.
And we're saying basically we're going to move forward with the capital expense.
We're going to accelerate the replacement that otherwise would have ensued, right?
Well, and what I looked at was doing holes, just so you know, we have 1 through 6 with these new ones, okay? So you look at, all right, well, it makes sense, let's go ahead and get 7, 8, 9, and then 10 through 18, that was my first thing, let's look at that. Well, then I start breaking down the price on this unit, and I almost fell over. It was much more than I anticipated. Then I said, all right, well, if I do that, it's well over $30,000. Well, that does, for me, that just, it rattled me a little bit.
Okay.
So I regrouped and said, all right, well, what's a better option? So we started looking at signs. Here's just another example, similar to what it's going to look like hanging on the pole. It's a very simple. It's an aluminum sign. You touch up the paint periodically. Wash it, and you're good to go. Maintenance is much lower on them, and it just, for me, made a lot more sense. I don't think it distracts. Is it as nice as this? No. Yeah, obviously it's not. Okay, but I just can't see spending $2,900. Now, please understand, this unit's 2. Then when you put the plaque on, you carve the yardage out. You mount these are all separate pieces. Then you mount the ball washer to them. That's where the price, all that compiled comes in. And then you look at the maintenance to maintain that. Yes, ma'am.
I would like to see if we're going to have this golf tournament on June 1st, that we're spending all this money on the greens. I would like to see the course look great.
I mean, this, again, $20,000 is a lot of money, but in lieu of replacing these at $2,900 apiece, I think it's a deal. I actually took a ride at a couple courses, and if you go over and look at Riddle Farm in particular, they use the aluminum signs.
Well, accelerating it is a cost saving in the
It
near
is.
term.
It is.
And really the near term. And near term to me being a year or two.
Yeah, and you see some of the signs. If you're out there golfing, you can go up to the older signs. They're ready to fall over. I mean, 9's already
The
broken.
real old ones, yeah.
Yeah.
They in the
Bob,
boxes.
I'm fully supportive of this. But one question, the old 6, do you have some use for those in mind?
We do. We actually, we're looking at some other spots where we can relocate them on the golf course. One of the things about the panels, okay, as an example, these are actually mounted from the inside, what we talked about was this is actually mounted, again, I went out and looked at it, because you don't want to throw this type of investment away. These are actually have a shaft on the back with a bolt. So really, you pull those off. You could potentially flip this panel around and put that back on, and you lose the yardage, but you have a white panel to match the rest. Now, will it have the same gold around it? It will not. I argue that no one's going to really notice that, especially when you have the Ocean Pines emblem that's on there.
So there is a use. We're not going to throw them away. We're not going to.
Oh yeah, we'll use them. We talked about using them at the front of the driving range on each end. Right now we have the old metal baskets there, so we would be able to reuse a couple there. We talked about strategic locations around the yeah. I mean, they're on the backside. It's a trash receptacle.
Yeah, good.
So we'll reuse them in a way. I just can't see replacing them at that cost.
We've had a motion and a second.
Yes, we have.
Why don't we call the question?
Okay, call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you. Okay, Yacht Club. Just as a quick update. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, we had our, these are for, I passed those out. We had our bid meeting for the Yacht Club. Again, this is just a quick update for everybody. Back on the March 28th, we had approximately 30 people express interest in doing that.
How many?
30.
30.
30. We had 28 there, and then 2 more showed up late, gave us our 30 number. And what happened, in lieu of wasting all the print of all the different materials, we had a scope of work. You all saw that. I circulated that via email, one for renovation, one for complete rebuild. Through that process, and then we had all the supporting material to include the piling studies, to include the survey. We had some Heinz and Associates do some soil boring, so we knew what we were dealing with there. All those pieces, the 2 reports, the recent reports we had done on the structural evaluations, the engineering reports, we had all those materials, and in lieu of printing them having them as handouts, we decided to save the money, and we burned them all on CDs. So what I've given you is a copy of the CD that was distributed at the meeting. And you can take that home, drop it in your computer, but it includes scope of work, historical drawings on the Yacht Club, evaluations, geotech reports, structural and survey drawings, and the potential conceptual drawings that we had drawn up. And if you go into each of these, there's a lot more detail under each of those headings. Okay, but it was just a very cost-effective way to put that material out there. And everyone seemed to appreciate it, and they walked away with a disc instead of stacks of reams of paper. All questions, we've only had 3 questions come in, but we are transmitting them via email back. And what we did was everyone that attended, we captured all their information electronically. And when someone asks us a question, we respond to it via email, and it's inclusive for all of the folks to look at. That way we're not answering. If we're answering a question for one, they're all getting the answer. April 18th, which is actually tomorrow, we have some of the contractors would like to have their subcontractors come out and take a look at the Yacht Club, where we have that available. Bless you. And on 18 May, we're due to have our bids back. Now, what we've elected to do there is we've said 4 o'clock is when we'd like to have the bids back, or that's the requirement to have them back. We're going to do only due to the fact we don't want there to be any secrecy or perceived secrecy, we've elected to do a public opening of the bids. We'll probably do it at 4:45 to 5 o'clock. We'll pick the time and we'll announce what time it is. But what we're not going to do in the bids, for clarity purposes, when we open the bids, we will give you that we had someone bid, ABC Builder bid, and what they bid on, rehab or new construction. What we're not going to do is release each individual's specific number at that time, because we think it would be unfair to do so for this reason. We don't know if their bid matches the scopes that we put out. We don't know if the bids, we need to make sure it's apples to apples. If we put a number out there that's inaccurate, it flies in the face of trying to be upfront with everybody. What we need to do is look at everything and go, okay, here's what they bid on. Now, what we'll do later is we'll publish a range once we look at them, and be happy to share that. But for trying to be open so everyone can see exactly what's going on, that day we'll do an open bid. It'll be late afternoon between 4:45 and 5 o'clock, and we'll just open the bids right there. Ted Baroni's supposed to be down for the weekend, so he said he'd assist me with that. And we'll just sit and open them. We'll list the bidder, and we'll list what they bid on. Yes, sir.
On the website, will we advertise that on the website with a specific time?
Mm-hmm.
Be times
I wanted to
outlined.
make sure before we did it, I expressed that to the board, and this was encouraged by a particular board member, that we consider doing it this way. So if there's no disagreement with that, yes, sir.
Will there be a public meeting? I mean, I agree with what you're saying. Public meeting after the bid leveling process is completed with an explanation of bids at that point in time and
Yes.
how they were leveled.
Yes.
A public meeting.
Maybe a special board meeting. And
Special
then,
board meeting
yeah.
with further
Invite the public.
Yes.
the
We
appropriate.
just don't want to do it that day because it would be unfair.
It's not fair to us or anybody.
The accuracy of them has to be validated. That's all.
Yeah.
A nice headline,
Okay.
maybe inaccurate.
Yeah.
The intent here is for all the numbers and all the information to ultimately become public.
Yes.
Good.
Okay.
Where are we on the food and beverage?
Well, really? Am I looking at the screen? We are real excited. I've asked 3 people to help me going through. We put an ad. Teresa put the ad out for us a month and a half ago now, for food and beverage manager for the yacht club. We had 40 plus resumes come in that were qualified individuals to meet the job requirements there. Real excited about it. I've asked three people to help me review all of them, just so you all know the process we took on, because this is a very important step for the association, getting the right person in there. We took, when I got all the resumes together, got them all stacked up, and I took these 3 individuals independently and asked them if they would help me review these. In doing so, I gave the packet to them of the list. I had already racked and stacked in my mind and had it written on a separate sheet. I gave it to the first individual. He did the same thing. Then I took all the resumes back. I took out his findings, put them with mine, gave it to the next individual. They did the same thing, and on so with the third. So at the end, I got all the resumes back, and then I took all 4 of our sheets, and I was able to rack and stack. Interestingly enough, in the top, if you look at the top 15 of the 40, there was about 8 people that fell in all of our top 15, and the top 7, majority of us had in different order, but they all fit in that same group, which was great. So it made it real clear who we thought would be good candidates. So from there, we invited them in. We've been going through interviews. The interviews were conducted by all 4 of us. And doing that, we went through, obviously, the regular interview process, the resumes, those type of things. We feel very confident, fortunate. We're down to 2 extremely good candidates. One is out of the area, and one is more local to the area. And we're going through the background and references on those individuals now before doing the final, chat to see where we are with them. But they are 2 extremely qualified, and I think they're going to make a big difference this season for us.
Is there an expectation, or do you have an expectation date of when the award winner will be?
The goal would be in enough time to have a great opening with Memorial Day weekend.
Any questions on that process? Anybody?
We're actually very excited. Now, on another note with the F&B, just as a follow-up so you all know, when the person walks in, they're not going to hit the ground. They'll have the financials. Both the final candidates have been asking a lot of the details about those, which has been great. You can tell their mind's in the right spot. But we've also, and Teresa's done a great job from the marketing side, we have a 3-ring binder that actually breaks down. We have all the summer entertainment booked already because you have to do contracts with them ahead of time. They're booked. The contracts in the binder. The W-9 form information has already been completed. These are things we didn't always do as well or timely. They're all done for this season already. So that's all lined up. The calendars are set. We're doing the same thing with the banquets that we already have lined up to include the contracts. So when the individual gets hired and they come in, they already have things in place from the entertainment factor, from the banquets that we've been booking. That way they hit the ground running. The service standard, the quality of the food, managing the labor costs, they're the things that they're going to initially focus on. And in our discussions, they're both very much aware of that and excited about that. So we're trying to do everything we can to ensure the success of the individual, not counting their background, which is phenomenal in each. Yes, sir.
And I'm assuming also when this person is named that they'll be involved with the design, what's going on with.
It just so happens to fall at the time when the bids are coming back, and yes, we'll be able to take a look from the design part of it, and then we'll start, obviously, the relationship with Langford Cisco and those type of things. We'll leverage that through this individual to make sure we're getting a real nice look at not only what they're going to do for us now, but in comparison to the project with their experience in the kitchen.
They're expert.
Yes, absolutely.
And this person will be involved in the creation of the business plan.
Yes, I've already shared both with the individuals, the 2 individuals. Okay, so we're real excited about that. So that should be forthcoming. Okay, liquor license. It's come up recently, a lot of questions about the Beach Club liquor license. And I know we've talked about it before, but not all the board members sitting at this table were here last year when I went through it. So I thought, well, let me just revise that real quick. Our food and beverage committee, our club's advisory committee, actually, I saw their report, they're questioning it. So I thought, well, let's just throw it out there so everybody knows exactly where we are with it. There are different classifications of liquor license. Okay, there's Class A, Class B, C, and D, and I won't read all these. They're in here in the notes I gave you. But they clearly delineate the type of license. You're also available, other than the A, B, C, and D, and there's some variations of each. Look at, let's go with D as an example. On and off sale. There's an on and off sale beer. There's an on and off sale beer and wine, and there's an on and off sale beer, wine, and liquor. So there'd be 3 categories under that D as an example. Everybody follow that? Okay. I point that out because the next set of licensing, there's a racetrack, a special Sunday, and a 1-day permit. All are under the actual liquor licensing rules. Now, we are a Class C license. Class C would be club. The primary reason our license holds up the way it is the club licensing also is impacted by the zoning of the property. Our property at the beach there is an R3 zone property. Okay, so the R3 zoning, okay, prohibits public restaurants at the facility. As a club, we can have our restaurant. As a club, we can serve alcohol to our membership. So they are all the reasons we are currently a Class C with our beach club property. We talked about, folks, we've talked about going, trying to petition to change that. We would have to get a zoning change to be able to meet the requirements. Okay, we'd have to, which would mean we would potentially have to petition mayor and city council in Ocean City, and we'd have to petition at the liquor licensing board.
What will you change it to, Bob? I'm just looking at the category.
We could go, actually, one of the petitions, if you look at the B, on and off sale beer and wine, or A, on sale premise. And there's greater detail, like the B is the one you look at, would be the primary, which is hotels and restaurants. So we'd be obviously a restaurant.
Yeah, that doesn't include liquor, does it?
It did. It just, again,
I
sizing, I didn't get all on there, but
is
you
liquor.
pull it up, yes.
What are, with the license that we have at our 3 commercial properties,
Well, they're
country,
different.
okay, what are there time restrictions that we can be open for business?
I'll have to pull it up.
Okay.
I don't have that at my fingertips. we'd have to change our zoning in Ocean City from R3 to
Don't
commercial.
hold your breath.
Again,
You get that done tomorrow?
That's what
If it's on a path, I'll get it done, but it's gonna be a little while.
No,
All
I
right.
think there,
So I just,
well, I want to actually commend the clubs committee for looking at this, bringing it to the surface again for us to review it. Where are we? There are some advantages possibly to changing, but obviously some rather large hurdles between here and there.
Well, and an obvious, very large door sitting here called, how do you define a member of the club?
so, just, I thought I'd go ahead and cover it since it's been kicked around, and I did it last year, not everyone was sitting here last year, so.
Tom,
Yes, sir.
when was the last time discussions were actually held with with Ocean City officials? A year or so ago, or when was that?
When you say.
I mean, in terms of the liquor license, the
I
requirement.
did research last year,
Last year.
of January, February timeframe, just so I was smarter
Right.
about it, because, and from January through March, and some of you know, and Pete, I don't know that you do, that we have to sign our liquor license and resubmit them every
Right.
year.
Ray
So-
reminds us all the time that his name's on it.
Yeah, so in doing so, that's, leading up to that, so I started to research it last year. So we went ahead and, applied for our licenses. We got them, we actually got them in a little earlier this year, and we've already gotten them back, no issues. But prior to that is when we started searching last year to make sure before we filled them out to apply for last season that we were applying for the right things, if there were any changes. That's where I learned about the difference at the beach club. And then this year it came up again just because some folks had some questions, particularly the clubs group. So I thought, let me just get it out there so everybody knows exactly what we're dealing with.
This is it. Prior to that, maybe 2 years, probably 3 years ago, I think 2 years, Phil Rako and Les Purcell
I remember that.
went down and talked to the Ocean City veterans. I never saw a definitive, when I say definitive, something I can sit down and read, and perhaps a statement from Ocean City, somebody that, that says, hey, this is it. But the impression I got was that it wasn't impossible. I mean, and that you could change the license. You had to apply for it and go through it. I don't recall anything about there had to be a zoning change. It just doesn't come to my mind. I don't know. It still seemed like it would be. You hear stuff, and you never quite pin it down.
Well, I did research. I went and looked at the zoning and what R3 was, and I pulled the zoning regulations. It was 140 pages. I just pulled out what the different zoning, the first 2 pages. I also pulled up the Worcester County Board of License Commissioner Alcohol Beverage License Rules and Regulations and read through this to make sure I understood it. So, I mean, they're all available. You can pull them up on the website and look at them. It explains all the differences.
Maybe I will. I'm just to satisfy my own curiosity.
I mean, I had to
and by the way, there's a whole other issue which I brought up back then. I said, do we really even want to do it? I know everybody liked the money, but on the other hand, that's those little girls with their water wings and sandy feet walking through there isn't exactly my idea of a bar. But,
This has come up at least 3 times in the last 15 to 20 years. The presentation was made, and Ocean City always have to recommend. So.
Yeah, he said Ocean City always kind of danced around the question. I don't know about that.
The fun question to ask is if for any other reason in the world we decided to apply to change our license, is there a downside risk? Are you risking your current license if you do that? In other words, if you apply for a new license and get turned down, do you also lose the current license you have?
I don't know.
That would be a
how
little
much fun
concerning.
that would be.
I don't know why. That issue, I can guarantee it never came up.
And one thing that occurs to me in this discussion is that we really want to be focusing on the yacht club, I think, primarily to get that squared away and return to profitability, or assume profitability, maybe not return, but assume profitability. So you know, right now the beach club is a facility that's open 3 months of the year, right? And I think down the road that's probably important, perhaps important. I don't know that it will be, but I mean, right now I think the priorities to me seem to be let's get the yacht club moving in the right operational direction, get the manager on board. Let's get that thing squared away and start making, at least breaking even on it.
Yeah, well, the assumption would be that you could really walk and chew gum at the same time, and
That's an assumption.
Go
All
ahead.
right. Next thing, just a couple quick bullets here. Burbage property came up. The zoning hearing was last Thursday. I attended the meeting. I know there was an email recently saying no one from the Ocean Pines was there. I actually attended the very long meeting, and I see some of the press that actually sat in the meeting were there as well. So the end result, Mr. Cropper represented Mr. Burbage and presented all his facts. It was not unlike the last presentation at the zoning meeting, and I apologize, I couldn't remember the time, but I attended that one as well. It was not unlike that, where it presented all the facts about the property, the zoning, the potential change in zoning, the reasons why they felt the zoning did not meet, with the long-range plan. Had a land planner there who discussed it, had someone, reforestation, someone talking about the woodlands and the animals and if there was any endangered species, those types of things. They talked about impact studies on traffic counts. All those things were presented in the approximate 2-hour meeting. About a 2-hour meeting, because I have some folks that were down there as well. At the end of the meeting, it was decided to table any decision until next month because the amount of information that was presented. The zoning did not want to weigh in and say they didn't want to take a vote that day on approve or recommendation to approve or disapprove and forward to the county commissioners. They decided to delay it by a month until the next meeting. Okay, just as an update so everybody knows. IRS update. Board decided to proceed with the en banc petition, and we put out a press release on that. It was actually, we confirmed it was filed yesterday, which was within the time frame necessary. So we did not hear back as of yet to when we can expect to hear if they will even accept the petition and hear the case. So I don't know when that'll be. We're waiting to hear back from our attorneys on that one. Tennis drainage is being completed today. Just some bullet items to let you all know. We did some pretty extensive drainage out there. As you know, one thing that came up, replacing the courts and the cost to replace the courts. We surveyed the property. We did a drainage study on the property, did stormwater management on the property, talked with the county, and then now we're at the point where we're working through that plan where we're improving the drainage. So that work's being wrapped up now from all but putting back the material, i.e. Concrete on the areas we had to tear up to make the improvements. Beach Club is currently being painted as we prep for the season. If you walked out, I went out and looked at before it's part of the maintenance. Again, we're trying to make sure we maintain our facilities. If you went out there before, and you could probably sneak out the building, if you didn't believe me, go walk the building on the areas they haven't painted. It needed it. There were some bare spots. Mulching around the community will begin next week. Some of the things that you may hear or may not, I certainly have, where folks are like, well, how come we haven't done this, and this yet? Well, the fact of the matter, folks, we had a very mild winter, and we've had a very early summer. I know it's not summer yet, but it's been so warm, it feels that way. Folks expect certain things to have been done. Public Works is ahead of schedule on many of their projects. It's just with it being this warm, folks are like, well, why isn't this done? We're ahead of schedule. The folks at Public Works are doing a very, very good job to stay ahead of things. We made a decision on the company we're going to work with, the website. We haven't notified them as of yet. Remember, we talked last month and the month prior that we're looking at making those enhancements as part of the overall improvement to technology platforms. Obviously, the website plays a very, very important role in that. Questions about those? Okay, some replacement items, some bids. I have them all separated, so I have them in order now. Keep them up there. All right, we're going to start with the tractor replacement. And again, in the essence of saving trees, I just printed the cover page for everybody. We have a budgeted item of $45,000 to replace the tractor. We went out for bid. The cover sheet that you have in front of you actually gives the bid breakdown. And you can see that the one we're recommending is actually $8,900 below the actual budget amount. And it's a replacement. Now, would you like me to give you all four before I ask you if we can take action, or you want to do them
We'll do them one at a time.
Okay.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Okay. Next item.
All these are budgets, right?
Yes, sir. Okay, this is the Beach Club awning. If you recall, we talked about last season replacing the awning itself. We have the one that gets put up and put down at great cost. There's tears in it, need to be replaced. The new awning that we had put in the budget was a retractable awning, which saves a lot of money from the installation and takedown, not just at the beginning and end of the season, but also during the season when we have a nor'easter blow up or a hurricane blow up or those type of things. We would have to do an emergency petition to get the awning down by the company that did it for us and then put back up. The costs, it didn't make sense to continue to bear those costs. We elected to go with a retractable awning. It was something that we did discuss during the budget, and it is something that was approved. We'd like to get it on order, though. And you can see this one is $2,400, $2,369 lower than what we had budgeted for.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor?
Yeah, excuse me, Mr. President. Question with respect to the awning and the warranty provided by the company on that awning, particularly warranty for design against conditions on the beach. Does that exist? Are they aware? And are they telling us that yes, it will stay up?
Yeah,
The breeze kicks it up.
Yes, and I'd be happy to show you the bid. There is all of them install at the beach and have been for the three companies we used are all that deal with beachfront property. They're
Yep.
used to using the awnings, and they're telling us the type of material and awning that we're working on is a commercial type collapsible awning that will hold up to the weather and in particular salt conditions over there because it wears out the bearings and those type of things. So we have had those discussions.
Do they warrant this?
There's a limited warranty on any of the awnings we could find. They're all limited.
Yeah.
And they're specific to certain items.
Thank you.
Call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Okay. As you know, we replace our fleet maintenance with our vehicles. This is a budgeted item. This would be one of our Public Works pickup trucks. We had budgeted. This was a nice. I say nice. Anytime you're spending money, kind of go ouch. But this, if you'll notice, we had budgeted $30,000 for this truck in our budget. The way pricing is right now, we're able to purchase. We're actually at a $6,573 savings right now when we went out to bid. So you see the four companies that bid. We put it out for 6 companies. We only had 4 bid on the project.
Actually, 2 are from the same company.
This is what's that?
Yeah.
Different vehicle.
Okay,
They gave us different specs. They met our specs, but they made 2 different recommendations. There's a government program right now, and you will. This I found interesting. I guess I shouldn't comment on exactly what it is, but we will be replacing tour vehicles with Chevrolets as opposed to Fords. There's government pricing right now that makes the purchase of the Chevrolet far more economical than the Ford. So I think either way, we're probably paying for it, either our tax dollars or whatever. But from an association trying to buy one, it's cheaper to buy the Chevy right now. And it's,
Imagine that.
Any questions? Motion to accept.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Is that it?
no, and one
One
more.
more.
All right, this is all.
Who seconded that one?
I
Yeah,
did.
yeah.
Thanks, Rick.
Right.
And again, these are all budgeted items. This is a service truck. Same thing, this one's, we don't have quite the savings, but see, this one's a $3,000 savings off what was budgeted. Same type of situation. Everything's the same as last one.
Move to approve. Second.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Any more comments? That's it?
That's it. Oh, no. I do have one more. This one I didn't break down the same sheet. I got this one late. Let me pass the cover sheet. This actually is with a different department. It's not the same type of cover. I didn't make copies of this, but this is replacement of one of our police vehicles. And this is what we had. And I apologize. All right, do you remember our budget number? I don't have the budget on this one. We're within budget, I just don't remember the number. This is for one of our police replacement. That's the cover letter, which I need back, but that's a replacement of one of the police vehicles.
Crown Vic or a Dodge?
No, or a Dodge. No, we're not going to the race cars yet. This is another sport utility, a little smaller than the one we had though. This would be replacement of one of the Crown Vics to Ford Explorer. We got the Expedition, but the Explorer has a little better gas mileage and it's a little cheaper. So we decided to go with the
Budgeted
Explorer. Yes, budgeted replacement item, yes.
You think that's on the budgeted amount? Or
Yeah,
a
yeah, I
little
think
less
it's
than?
a little bit less. All the vehicles came in a little bit less than the budget. Actually, one of them came in a lot less, the pricing, which was nice.
I would make the observation, as my colleague here has done as well, that the variance budgeted for all these items exceeds the amount we just approved for the signs.
Well, as a matter of fact, not.
The positive variance, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact,
We've paid for the signs with the savings from the budget and these things right here.
As a matter of fact, I've been figuring as we've gone along, not including this last item, which we didn't have the budget number for, but the first items, the totality of them came $20,868.
I round, so it's 21 on my quotes here.
I'm exact. I'm a scientist.
And how much did we approve for the signs?
Motion to
About
approve.
20,000. All in favor, aye? Yes?
First, second.
First
Unanimous?
is, I need a first and second. Let's not go too.
I'll make the motion to approve.
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Thank you.
Okay.
Nothing here about my helicopter.
No helicopter, no sir. Okay, by the numbers, last item, and turn that over. Everybody, it's in your, but I want to turn it so everybody here can see it as well. Things that hide in the last column. Maybe. All right, well, maybe I can. Maybe I can't. All right, I am hiding last column. I don't know how to move it. Anyone up in the back need to see? You can look at this, come up, look at the screen afterwards. Well,
Set it on top of the stack or something, Buck?
It's not, no, it's
No, it's,
see where it's a little cattywampus, it's a little sideways, and it's, yeah, it's something to do with the way it's set up. But basically, the bottom right corner shows you a and you have it in your hand, $22,748 positive variance overall. You can pretty much see by the right-hand column the color, for those in the back that can't actually see the numbers, but you can just add through it. But the black are positive, the red are the negatives. But we're still, at this point, running approximately for the organization, $22,748,000 ahead of budget, all in year to date.
All in.
All in. Now, you can break down components. Example, we're going to hear about golf, and we're going to hear about yacht club. The variance to the budget on golf is 129.9, which is 130,000. Yacht club is 99,487 variance to the negative. But all in,
Does the beach club include beach parking?
it does.
Okay, so that's guessing. I mean, the beach club does better than
It's a
budget.
beach.
No, it's separate.
It's beach club that we put in rec for the parking.
I don't know. Can't tell.
Beach club parking.
Beach club parking is up in recreation,
Yeah, it's in
tennis,
rec.
marina, and beach parking.
So it's separate. I apologize for that. But it's in the financials you guys get. You pulled it out of your box with the blue cover. this
Yeah,
time.
The totality of it is we're $22,748 to the good.
Yes.
2 more weeks to go, huh?
We're trying. All right, that's all. That's probably a little bit longer, but that's what I have.
Thanks, Bob.
Thank you, Robert.
Okay. Public comment.
I'm Carol Mills. I live on Falcon Bridge Road. I have a comment. First of all, since this is a public meeting, I think it would be nice if you used the PA system so the public could hear. I'm hearing people behind me saying they can't hear. Next, I'm sorry Mr. Foreman left the man about the carpet. On the day that this building was dedicated, I encountered Babshot, and I asked him why in the world they put carpet in a room that's going to be used for food and for kid activities. And he said, I'll quote him, it was a committee activity, and he left and turned and suggested to me that I not volunteer for cleanup. That's about the carpet.
was that, Carol?
Carpet in here.
Carol, I didn't hear
Who
what
was
you
that?
said.
Who was that?
Contractor?
The contractor.
Contractor.
I
Oh,
encountered
labor.
the contractor and asked him why in the world. And that was his reply. It was a committee
Don't volunteer for cleanup. Right.
decision and don't volunteer for cleanup.
Yeah, well.
John.
Good morning. Joe Reynolds, 84 Watertown Road. First of all, I'd like to applaud the board for proceeding with the appeal on the IRS issue. I've heard a lot of complaints from association members who don't think we ought to be spending another nickel on it. But quite frankly, the $2,500 or whatever is to appeal, and even another 30 or 40 or 50, if they decide to do it, is well worth the try in an attempt to not have to pay $1 million. But I do have one question in regard to that. What you made is, I take it, is a request to have the full court hear this case. What I haven't heard is, and I'm not a lawyer, but as I understand it, there are 2 ways the court can hear that case. One is the entire court will hear it based upon evidence that's been presented in prior trials, and the second way, which would probably be to our benefit, would be if the entire court heard the case as if it were hearing all the evidence for the first time. In other words, it's a first. Now, these two make distinctions, because the issue for us, I believe, is whether or not the IRS rules and regulations comply with the law as passed by Congress. And I'm not so sure that in other words, and I don't know. Does anybody here know how we presented it?
You 2 guys have the lead on this. Feel free to answer. Yeah, I don't want to get into the.
Again, I'm not a lawyer either, okay, but I have been involved somewhat with Bob. As I understand it, we really had 2 alternatives at this particular level. One was to ask for a rehearing by the 3-judge panel, which we chose not to do. Okay? The other option was to the en banc, which is the entire court. Those were our only 2 options. Now, you talk about a trial. It's really not a trial.
Well,
what they're doing is simply reviewing the tax court. The 3-judge panel simply reviewed the briefs, which was a review of the tax court's initial ruling, which was negative to us, obviously. But they don't get into all the whys and wherefores. They're just looking at the law and the actual citations by the tax court. The Court of Appeals, if they would choose to accept it, would again be based on the same submissions, previously altered submissions, but there's no new evidence, if you will. There's no new facts and circumstances, perhaps clarification and so forth. But our options were only those two. One, to go back to the three-judge panel, which you chose not to do, or secondly, to go to the entire Court of Appeals.
Okay. So you're not familiar with how the court, if they decide to hear it, whether they hear it based on evidence that's been previously presented, or look at it as though we're an entirely new case. And I don't
They
want
will not look at
I
it
don't
as
want
a
to
new
belay
case.
it.
No. They will simply review
Okay.
what has been done
Okay,
before.
fine. I don't want to push it, but I think they can vote to look at it as a new case. With regard to your comments earlier, Pete, about a conspiracy theory, I think you were referring to an email I sent out yesterday of somewhere over 5,000 association members. I didn't mention any conspiracy theory. What I said was that the board's failure to follow the bylaws could have an impact, one way or the other, on the election in some way, and that whether it was intended or unintended, that could be an impact. Intended or unintended. That does not say there's a conspiracy theory. That says a possibility. Intended or, quite frankly, I believe it's not intended. I think it's incompetence, perfectly honest. On the issue of the search committee, President Terry said early in his comments that the committee is functioning. This is before the board voted to appoint 3 more people to make it 4 of the 5 that are required by the bylaws. I think this board and this president in particular are trying to trivialize the intent and the importance of following the bylaws of this association. And there are no bylaws that are much more important, in my view, than those that impact the election of the people who manage our association. I think it's very important. The form that's online requires mentions that there'll be an oath taken by the directors. There's no requirement in our documents to take an oath. And a director may elect to take it when he takes the office, but he doesn't. It's not required. The issue of the inspection is an interesting one because there's no way it's presently constituted that even if you went out this week or May 10th when these are due and did an inspection and found something wrong with a candidate's home, there is no way to find him in continuing violation before the election. If you follow the processes that we have in place, there's no way for that to happen. But beyond that, consider this. The requirement to be a candidate is that you be able to vote in an election and be a member in good standing. There's a number of ways we say it. Arbitrarily, somebody, somewhere, somehow has said, if you are going to be a candidate, we're going to check to see if you're a member of good standing by sending an inspector out to your house to inspect your property. And yet, the exact same requirement to be a member in good standing who can vote is required to be a committee member on any committee you appoint. And no board, to my knowledge, has ever sent an inspector out to anybody being appointed to a committee to see if their home is in order. So I think we're putting barriers in the way of places. I think Dave said it well. We're putting a barrier in a place. And you can trivialize whether people will worry about somebody coming out to their home or not. I recall a few years ago, Bill Zawacki dropped his application to be a candidate off at the office and went to the store afterwards. And before he got home, an inspector was in his backyard, didn't even announce anything. His wife is going, "Who is this guy wandering around in my backyard?"
Same thing
I
happened to me.
mean, this is all kind of... Anyway, I think the board, it's not too much to ask that the board follow the bylaws. And I realize sometimes people forget things. But Tom, quite frankly, you were trying to trivialize the failure to do that even today by saying that it's not even on the agenda today. You didn't put it on the agenda to finish a point. That shows how little concern you have about the bylaws. And I find that troubling, quite frankly. On One more item and I'll get off my soapbox. I made requests in the last few days about the agenda. The agenda, according to the board of directors, has a resolution that the agenda will be prepared, I believe it's 3 or 5 days prior to the meeting. And the board's own resolution is very clear that the agenda shall include the actual motions to be made and an explanation of the potential impact, I forget how it's phrased, of if the motion is passed, what impact will it have, what effect will it have. This board just doesn't follow its own guidelines. As late as yesterday afternoon, I asked via email to all directors that I'd like to, as an association member, I'd like to receive a copy of the motions that were to be made today. Ignored, never came back. I don't know why that is. I don't believe that every board member here, as of yesterday morning even, had the full agenda. And it just doesn't seem like the right way to run an organization. I think this board, and forgive me, Tom, you're a nice guy, I think you lack leadership in managing this board of directors. And I'm sorry to say that because I supported you for this position, as you all know, 2 years ago. But the board needs to pay closer attention to our regulations. Thank you very much.
I feel compelled for the public information to make it clear.
Please.
Dan, when was the agenda put together for this board meeting? When was it available?
It was submitted by me for publication on April the 12th, 2011, and it did include all motions that were in hand at that time. Actually.
And they were in the mailboxes of every board member.
As far as I know, they were. Yeah. Correct.
April 12th,
April 12th.
all board members received not only the agenda, plus the motions accompanying the agenda, correct?
Yes.
I have to say that the first time I realized that they were in the mailbox, first time, was when I called up on Monday to find out that the packages were there.
Dan, I believe you notified the board members via email that the packages were there.
Yeah, I got it.
Yeah.
I
An
did
email
not
typically
get it.
goes out to the board members
Say that
advising
they're
them
there.
that the agenda is prepared, all the motions are there, and they're in their mailbox.
I'll tell you what,
If I could just add one quick follow-up. You may be correct. However, if board members take the time to read their own resolutions, it says it will be sent to association members and to the media 3 days ahead, not just the board. Read your own resolutions, please.
Just as an FYI, well, hang on, I'll take it. Anyone going, just the agenda is on me going to the media. I usually look at one more time before it goes out. I missed it to getting it out on time. So any resident, anybody has concern, talk to me about what's not a board function. Our job's to get out. It was in the board packets, as Mr. Stukursky said, that Thursday. It was there. It was available. Secondly, we normally then forward it out. I did not forward it to Teresa and ask her to forward it out. That's on me. This was not a board issue. This was mine. We didn't get it out. I apologize. We usually do. I think this is the first one in a year and a half that we've missed getting it out the Thursday or Friday before the board meeting. So there was no intent. It was just missed. I hope that answers.
Just one little thing, a suggestion.
Unless it's clarifying the facts, I'd like to just move on.
Well, I think we misstated the fact. I mean, I'll apologize to everybody here if I'm proven untrue, but I did not receive the notification. When I'm saying this, that's because I went back through my list of meetings. I can do it again. There was no notification that the board package was ready. I found out on Monday when I called the office to see whether or not it was there. I didn't get an email from Dan that said the board package is in the process. The motions that were there, I had no idea of what even they were until I picked it up on Monday afternoon. I couldn't answer Joe's question because I didn't know the answer. So,
Well, procedurally, Dan, we need to take a look at that.
Well, all right, and that's my fault because the notification was part of a package of correspondence. The last piece of the you go back and look at your emails, you'll probably find the last paragraph on the last one from me says your package is ready or will be ready on Thursday afternoon in the office, which it was. And, you know, that's my fault for not making that a separate email and making it very clear that that material is there and available. We do need to coordinate a little bit better with getting it out to the public, and that's just something that we're doing.
Tom, I just have one final comment to make. Procedurally, we understand that that's the way it's supposed to be. We get it in the press and so forth, and my understanding is that we've been following that, and maybe et cetera, time to time. But what I would suggest to someone who has a question about that is rather than send an email to all 7 directors, get in touch with the Secretary and the President, for heaven's sakes. Or pick up the phone and say, hey, can I get a copy? Anyway, so I got these emails, and I must have gotten 3 or 4 of them as a board member. It was mailed to all board members, the email. And I would say that, Dan, if you had gotten a call or request, or Tom, you would have probably said, oh my gosh, we'll get that to you right away.
You did get an email.
It went to all board members, Dave.
I know.
Enough.
The point's been taken, made, justify with every right to whatever positions. I just wanted to make sure that we were clear on some of the facts of what went on and didn't go on. We've got some communication issues. To my knowledge, Bob, that's the first and only time that we failed to get the agenda out to the media, and I acknowledged an email back to the young
That's
lady
incorrect.
that error been made.
Not the first and only time.
Point of order. The person who's speaking has already had
Is there
their
more
time.
public comments, Tom?
Any other public comment?
Chip Percino,
Citizen or?
This is public comment.
Public
Correct.
comment.
Okay. Chip Percino, Nottingham Lane. Last week, Thursday, I believe it was, Thursday evening, the Ocean Pines Chamber of Commerce had their after hours at the Yacht Club. And I just wanted to pass on to the board, the general manager, and the staff that it was a very nice event, and they did a very nice job as far as service and food. And quite truthfully, it was one of the few times that I've been at the Yacht Club for an event like that I was impressed with the level of service and the quality and the quantity of food. So I want to thank you all for doing that, and do hope that if we have an event there again, that the results are just as equal or even better. So thank you. So we're finished with public comments, so I can get up again when I have a press conference.
Any other public comment? Media.
With regard to the conversation preceded regarding the agenda and disseminating that information to the media, I would ask, I think there was a question brought up about the motions that were going to be brought to the table today. I did not receive the motions accompanied with the agenda. I did receive the agenda yesterday, but there were no motions attached to it. I don't know if any other media did or not, but I just wanted to raise that. When you email that, if you could email the motions as well. Another question I have, just for clarification, did Public Works buy 2 trucks, or did they buy 3 trucks? I just, Bob, you
Just do a tractor,
well, there was the tractor, but in Public Works, did you buy 1 Chevy or 2?
Two trucks,
Okay, 2 trucks.
police ended
And a
up with a
police vehicle.
vehicle and 1 tractor.
Okay, thank you very much.
They haven't bought yet.
One other question, if I may. The golf memberships, the lifetime memberships, how many yet have been sold? Do we know? Is there a number?
One has
We
been
do
signed with
know.
a check in hand, yes.
We have one, because quite frankly, we have the tentative commitments that were made some time ago, and quite frankly, and Bob and I had this conversation yesterday, immediately after this meeting, we're gonna get back on that full time here to bring closure to that process. So
Okay.
we intentionally waited for the follow-up until the actual project was visible and we at a certain stage. So now it's time to follow up and to move forward with all due dispatch to get that done. So there's the one, there are others that they've got contracts in their hand, we just need to bring that to closure and then move on.
Thank you.
So it's just the one.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, what is the current policy with respect to inspection of property owned by candidates to the board. I know there was some discussion here about that today. And what exactly is the OPA policy in practice?
As I understand the ruling, and we've got a couple other gentlemen here to my right that can help clarify this. My understanding is that in order to be a candidate for office, you have to be in good standing, and one of those issues is, do you have any CPI violations? Now, that's part of it.
Continuing violations.
Continuing violations. Dan, Dave, you want to add something
Yeah,
to that?
I do, because,
Go right ahead.
because it's really important that you understand what the bylaws actually said. I won't pull it out and read it, but I'll tell you that, A, it is a continuing violation, and by the way, it's eligibility to vote. You know, if you're in section 5 of the bylaws, it will refer back to section 3.02 for what you have to do to be eligible. Basically, you do have to be up to date in your assessments. I mean, that's a hard fact. Second thing back in 3.02 says that you must not be in continuing violation have a continuing violation declared by the board. Declared by the board. Now, what is the board's policy on this? I'm not sure, as a matter of fact, I am sure that there isn't a written policy. However, I will say, I've been a director for over 4 years, pushing 4.5. And we have never, as a board, declared a continuing violation. Never. Okay. The difficulty, so there is no policy, and it is incorrect to say. And by the way, I confirmed this with our attorney on Friday. It's one of the things in the paper. I'll leave a few extra copies because there's nothing secret about this. And confirm with you, attorney, that there is no requirement for the board to inspect the property of a candidate. Now, he doesn't say we can't do it, but there is no requirement to do that. And as a matter of fact, and a matter of personal opinion, I feel pretty strongly that that's something we should not do.
Well, I would agree with that, by the way. Just to be clarified, one of the things that Dave and I have talked about, and Jim and I as well, is I agree that there needs to be a procedure put together for the actual functioning of the selections committee, but I want to make another part very clear, that you do not have to go through the selections committee in order to be a candidate for the board. You can self-nominate yourself and take that nomination to the office and turn it in, and you are a candidate as long as you are eligible to run. So, you know, that is a major change that was done. The quote, nominating committee was changed a few years ago. So that rule is now different than it used to be. So you can self-nominate. Other questions? Did that answer your question?
Tom, may I clarify?
Go right ahead.
Let me, Dave, may reference, but let me just read you this 2 sentences here, and Dave, you'll kind of bottom. As to a continuing, quote, continuing violation, end quote, the provision of the bylaws, section 3.01, provides that in order to be eligible to vote, a member may be, quote, may not be, quote, in continuing violation of the declarations of restrictions after the existence of the violation has been declared by the board of directors, end quote. If a person is determined by the board to be in violation, that violation may well be determined prior to the deadline of May 15th, at which time the secretary verifies the candidate's eligibility. A case-by-case determination of the continuing violation can therefore take place based on individual circumstances of violation. So just what Dave said, and you're not aware in your 5 years, and I'm lesser time, but I'm not aware of any such deliberation at a board level or any candidate who's been deemed to be in violation. So but that's what the language of the...
Yeah, and if I may, and this is, if I may, the real issue comes down to whether or not, because somebody has announced themselves a candidate, the board should target that person for an inspection, or you know, speed up the process and try and do that. Now, all I'll say is that You know, I'm not going to get into what Joe's opinion on that, and we may have different views, but that is definitely a board issue. And I'm saying that since I came on the board has pretty determined not to do that, not to do it.
To mine, yeah, right. And unless something's been done, and I've been in every meeting, we've done no such thing this year.
And I suspect if you go back board after board after board after board, going back in time, you'll find the same answer.
No, I
But
believe,
maybe-
one other thing, that the search committee, and I think you said as well, that, Tom, we changed it from a nominating committee. And here's an issue, it's not a gatekeeper.
Right.
So you can hand it directly to the secretary who is there, you can drop it in the box in the office, you can make them look at it or not, but they can't do anything with them when they get them, except pass them to the secretary. I mean, that's just the way it is. Now, as it turns out, and that led to this confusion. Well, it's not confusion. We deliberately tried to clarify the bylaws, and we did it incorrectly according to the attorney. So that's okay. We'll have to do something else. But as of May 10th, having these in the search committee, between May 10th and May 30th, when they turn them over to the elections committee, and Judy Butler and her troops, get the thing going. You've got 20 days of dead time when we could be receiving applications. They say, well, if you didn't get them before then, you can't tell.
In order to change that, and you've got copies of
And-
the legal ruling and have the meeting notes.
We need a referendum change.
That's
We
far more
need a referendum change to
That's
change
too
the
complicated.
bylaws.
Yeah, I mean,
We have to change that.
Any other
which were
questions?
just changed 3 years ago, right?
Back to media questions, yes.
Yeah, well, in light of Joe Moore's opinion, it still seems like I'm not really getting an answer to my question. What is the OPA procedure and policy in light of Joe Moore's opinion?
May 10th is the due date. In light of that is the
Yeah,
due
the
date
bylaw.
in the bylaws.
Is the OPA doing inspection?
Well, he's talking about inspections. The answer
No,
is
no,
correct.
no, we're
Absolutely not.
No,
Absolutely not.
absolutely not. We are not. Have not and are not.
Is that clear?
Yes.
You're not sending the CBI guy out to the...
No.
Not to my
No.
knowledge.
You're not
No.
doing it.
Bob?
Have we
Under
sent
the direction of the
anybody
general manager.
anywhere?
No one's been directed to go out and do this.
And the board has not directed or even had a discussion with the general manager about this.
Have not.
But the form on the website says you're properly.
Well,
The
that's.
form. Okay, I think I have,
That's where we're
I
getting
have
all the
volunteered and
flack,
we
okay?
semi-assigned to make the
Rest
necessary
easy, Joe.
changes for the immediate election. And I have them in my hand, so it can be fast.
We'll work together and fix it.
Good Lord.
Yes, sir.
Might it be a good idea perhaps to take that down from the website, the reference?
That would be an immediate action for tomorrow, perhaps, and I'll send it out.
Well, let's
where
not
I'm at.
rush to judgment here, Dave.
No, you all get to see it. You will get it.
Let's have a special meeting that we can debate.
I don't think so.
It'll be done sooner than later.
Simpler
Let's
than
get on
that.
with business.
And, any more questions? Okay. Any other media questions? Okay. Old business, we have removed the motion for now. We're tabling it for now,
Yes,
right? We're not removing,
Yeah,
we're
I'll
tabling.
probably have it for next month.
All right, so just to clarify your wording, you're tabling that.
I'm
motion.
tabling it, yeah.
You're tabling it. It's not.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
just thought it was a personal privilege. I didn't notify you
Yeah,
that I
you
would
did.
have
Yeah,
to
I
be leaving.
realize you have.
I have only one issue. We have several motions that are before us. I've seen Pete's motion before, we already discussed it. I realized what it was yesterday when I picked up the motion. Of course, we did discuss Terry's, which is with, and she is withdrawing that. On the other hand, I would really hope that we could table the motion regarding the Dan's motion. That's the first time I've seen it. I read it, didn't have an opportunity to really read it last night. Looked at it this morning, and I have a number of questions and so forth. That's up to the rest of the board. But I would like that motion to be tabled until we can discuss it.
What's the thoughts on that?
I have a thought. May 1st is looming. May 1st is looming, and I think it's very important that we take some action to address the critical issue, the only issue really in the IRS matter, and that is being open to the public, the beach park. This addresses that, and we need to address it, and we need to do it by May 1st, in my opinion. Otherwise, we subject ourselves to yet another year.
No, if
He's got to go right now.
yeah, I really do. I'll go right now.
But Dave, that's why it's important.
One
No,
thing-
I think that we're in old business and we should just proceed with the agenda.
Okay. Okay. Well, I will say that from what I've seen, I don't agree, and would have probably voted no, though I would have liked to have heard more about it and discussed it. I think the issue there is, are we doing something that's reasonable in light of the IRS decision? And are we putting ourselves in jeopardy by doing something that's perhaps unreasonable? So you can keep those thoughts during the discussion, and whatever happens, happens, which would happen anyway.
Okay. The new business, old business, any update on the pending action on this bill?
Yeah, one thing in particular, well, actually, two items. The Carlton Lane thing reappears, just to ask General Manager, have we had any further problems with vandalism, with what had been going on there with the signs and whatever? So that seems to be cool. And are we still planning on painting a line down the middle of that road, or not?
First, I've heard about a line down the middle of the road.
Maybe I'm in there. I thought
I hadn't heard about that
Okay.
before either.
Okay. And the other item that I'd like to comment on is the bridge status repairs. I think that ties into roads, and I'm in a situation where I have an opportunity to meet on a regular basis with Beverly Swain, who's the Secretary of Transportation for the state of Maryland, and I'm in the process of getting information from her office through her with regard to exactly what revenues, how does the state generate revenues for roads, and what formula are they using to determine how much revenue each county or jurisdiction gets. So as soon as I have that information, I'll share that with you, and I'm also going to give that information in conjunction with the Comprehensive Planning Committee, which I'm the board liaison to. Okay.
Any other? That finishes old business, new business. Dan, beach parking daily.
It's a little lengthy, but I'm going to go ahead and read this motion. Be it resolved that OPA create a new beach club parking product as follows. A one-day parking permit valid for 1 day only. The parking permit may be purchased at the member service counter in the Ocean Pines Administration Building up to 2 days before the day of intended use. There are no restrictions on the sale of this one-day permit. The purchaser can be an OPA property owner or anyone else desiring one-day parking at the Ocean Pines Beach Club parking facility. The permit will be valid from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. for the day of use only. Just as all other beach club parking passes, the permit does not guarantee a parking space for the designated date of use. Parking is only available at this facility on a first-come, first-served basis, regardless of type of permit. No refund of purchase price of this daily permit, just as there is no refund of purchase price on any other beach club parking permit, will be available if the purchaser fails to obtain a parking space on the designated day of use. Rates will be $20 for an Ocean Pines property owner in good standing, $30 for the general public. Any vehicle left in the parking lot is subject to towing at the owner's expense after 5 p.m. Design of the permit and method of display, dating, etc. shall be determined by the OPA General Manager. This new daily beach club parking permit will be available beginning May 1st, 2012. And just as a side note, that is the beginning of our fiscal year, even though the parking lot will not be open until May 30th or whenever we go.
I'll second that.
Right, seconded. All right, just for clarification, just to make sure that we can remind us and notify the public, we have legal confirmation from our legal team and our accounting team that this function will in fact will allow us to resolve going forward with the IRS any issue. So this is in compliance with the guidance we have gotten from our own legal team, and that this will, in fact. So I just want to make sure, level set that this is something that has come up after legal counsel.
Yes, and with regard to what Mr. Stevens' comment just before he left, with that, if I remember it correctly, or if I have the information correctly in my mind, that he's not too sure we would be doing things that correctly, or that we should be doing that. Well, in our last meeting, closed session, when we were dealing with legal matters which concerns mentioned you just talked, I shared with everyone on the board the fact that we do have a model in place. We've had a model in place for many years where there's differentiated pricing for amenities between OPA members and people who live outside the community or who are not OPA members. Every amenity we have, there's a price for resident in place. It's been in place for several years. There is a price for resident, then there is a price for non-resident, which is more than the resident. So that model has been in place, and that was shared with legal counsel and our accountants at that time, and they feel very confident, especially since there's a model already in place, that we're not doing anything special just because of the situation with the IRS. Now, as far as how we're going to charge, I don't know, but as far as the process.
By passing this, we lay down the prod. So we're not going after the
Hear you. Say that again.
We lay down the prod so we're not going after the sleeping bear. I think this close to it.
Sleeping bear being the IRS.
Yes.
Just make sure we know what bear we're talking about. Okay. Pete.
I am very supportive of our taking action to address this matter, and I really think we need to pass a motion to open this up to the public in some manner, and this is one of perhaps several alternatives. I'm not going to offer another alternative, but there are others, and so I'm going to support our taking action today, but I do have some questions, Dan. And the first one is, and I don't know the answer at all, Bob, have you and Dan worked together is this reasonable? Is this what, I mean, I'm assuming that to be the case. Okay?
Yes, we have.
We have. I have some input, but I don't know when you'd like that.
Right now would
probably be a pretty good time.
Like now?
Because I do have some questions about details about the rates and the hours and that sort of thing.
Okay.
So,
just a couple of thoughts. When we sat and looked at the numbers after Mr. Sikorsky shared this, we talked about it, and then the motion was drafted, and we read back through it. So I sat down with staff, and we looked at how many beach passes we sell, what the effect may or may not be. One of the recommendations we would make as a potential consideration for the board in the motion is to have one pass at the same price for everybody. And here's the reasoning behind it. You don't want to, the emphasis as a member, the benefit as a member is you have access to the annual pass. And if you use it a number of times, your pricing, you have greatly discounted pricing on the particular pass. We felt that's the membership benefit. We're opening the pass to anyone that wants to use it in one day. We don't want to discourage the membership benefit. For someone said, I used the pass 4 times last year, so I don't want to buy the full pass. I just want to buy this because it fluctuates back and forth. We thought and I agree completely with this, we ought to be charging one fee for a daily pass for everyone. It is a little different. I know that in other areas, but this is a one-time purchase. It's not an ongoing. The discount comes in when you buy the multiple, which our memberships have access to. And that's where I would recommend a $30 fee across the board for the one-day pass.
Bob, just on the $30, I think we mentioned earlier, or somewhere on the meeting, what's the Ocean City parking lot? If you were there all day, what's the Ocean City?
I think when we did the calculation, it was over 30. If you're in the inlet all day.
If you go there all day, yeah. Is it around $25, $30?
Yes, it's in the range.
Okay.
It's in that range, yes. Okay. And that's where...
And that's important.
The actual number is between $29 and $30. It's 29 and change, and if you lose your ticket,
The
it's
first
30.
hour is this, the second hour is that,
Yeah,
all that
I
sort of
did all
stuff.
that math. It's
But if you lose your ticket, it's how much?
29 and it's $29 and
Okay,
change.
so this is consistent with that. Okay, that's important.
And that's where we felt the membership benefit in this for this particular item is buying that the annual pass, you get it at a greatly discounted price. Our concern is we're going to discourage when we do a $20 and $30, we're discouraging the purchasing of that particular pass. And I think we've discounted it too much.
Well,
and again, just our thoughts on it.
let's look at this from a different direction. We have to do something, okay?
Yes.
So if you make a daily pass available for the same price to everyone, and you have the people from Ocean Pines who only go 4 times a year, well, maybe if they had a daily pass that they could buy for those 4 times, they'd do that instead of not go at all.
Yes.
Maybe they would buy that daily pass for 4 times and say, I'd like to go next, whatever. And they say, we should have bought the discounted yearly. So you may increase your discounted comfort. I mean, it could work in a positive, actually, and satisfy the IRS at the same time.
Right.
Well, none of that's important as far as the IRS is concerned. As soon as the first ticket is sold to an outside person, we have complied with what the IRS.
I know. I was just trying to
said.
find.
But yeah, I
benefits.
understand what you're saying. I understand what.
To making it. I mean, it doesn't matter if you make it the same price.
Let me put another issue on the table that we've got the price thing on the issue. The other question I have is just operationally, the 5 o'clock closing time per se.
Yes.
In relation to the lease we have with Secrets, how operationally, how it is. I mean, I realize we've got to have a closing time. I'm not arguing at 5 o'clock. I'm just operationally, how's this going to work?
Well, typically our attendants leave at 4, and they have that hour for folks to leave because technically starting at 5, the lease then picks up with Secrets as the rollover line to the beach side. If they need the rollover and the car's there, someone could potentially be towed because they have exceeded their stay.
Okay.
Does that answer?
Yeah, well, and the other side of this is by having a 5 o'clock, it also eliminates any 24-hour parking that someone might want to do.
Right.
So, I mentioned earlier that I've got a question on the timing as well, Bob. And our members who have the parking permit, when do they need to exit the parking lot?
Same time.
5?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, then that's fine.
That's why 5 o'clock.
I didn't want to make it earlier for those folks and later for our folks.
That's why 5 o'clock.
And it really isn't an issue.
Right.
Because it is not, and I would anticipate it being an issue because out there at that time, a lot of times, even at that time, the parking lot's empty. And who's to say whether the car, someone at Secrets parked there? Secrets doesn't give you a hang tag, right?
Tom, I want to address something you said to make sure that we understand the problem. In terms of the legal team, I'm not aware that this particular motion and this particular set of facts has been run by the legal team. The concepts have been, and we've been involved in the discussion about opening it up to the public and various alternatives of doing that, right? And so I agree with that. I've been part of some of those discussions, as have you all. But in terms of our addressing in this particular fashion, I just want to note that and I'm not suggesting we have to either, but I just want to make it clear that we haven't run this motion by lawyers and gotten their input, but the concepts and the principles. Having said that, I also want to make it very clear, Ray, Sleeping Bear Man, this is not something we're going to sit down and discuss with the IRS. That's not the way it works, okay? We are reacting to the court rulings to date, the appeals process to date, and it's been very clear that we need to make this open to the public. But it's not a situation where you sit down and say, is this okay? Is that okay? Not so. We will do what we think is best as a matter of policy, and therefore make it open to the public. Somebody could always challenge it later, and we'll defend it later. But this is our best effort without having detailed discussions, which we're not going to have, and they won't have either. So let's just make that clear.
Yeah, well, the other piece of this too, in this motion and the next one that's on the agenda, are also being brought forward in that even though we've appealed it, we have to take action and act as if we don't prevail. We have to take action to get ready for the next season. We can't let another year go by without, now that we've appealed and we're going back again, to sit another year, in my opinion, and not react to it, it would be inappropriate.
And that's the basic decision we're going to make here today, is to not stand on what we're doing now and take the risk of another year being subject to taxation, right?
And not have a negative impact on it.
Precisely, Mr. President, I would offer one change to this motion as I read it. About 4 lines up from the bottom, it says rates will be $20 for an Ocean Pines property owner in good standing, $30 for the general public. I would change that line to rate singular will be $30, period.
The rate?
The rate will be $30, period. $30.
Well,
It says daily rate at the front end of the motion.
the rate will be $30, right?
Right.
The changes on motion.
Yeah, and I would suggest one other change, and I think you pause when you read it yourself. That sentence there, it starts, no refund of purchase price of the daily permit adjustment. I would lead in that, say, there will be no refund of the purchase price. Remember your pause there?
Sure.
That's what you read quite smoothly. But there will be no refund of the purchase price of, okay?
I will, Ray, you seconded it?
Yes.
There's one other important point here that, for me, it's important. If this doesn't work, we can change it later on. This is a one-year deal. This isn't like we're cashing this as concrete or bronze for the rest. You know, if this doesn't work out, we can, for the following year, do something different.
Opening this lot goes against everything
I
I wanted to do, but I'll...
At some point we have to...
Any conversation or questions?
Yeah, just a couple of things to pass on. We have looked at obviously the motion. We've already created a daily pass, okay, to hang put in the front of the car. In addition to that pass on the bottom, we're working our way to print a barcode or a strip that will be affixed to the bottom of it, because you all know we talked about we have that new card reader this year that we'll be able to scan and it'll tell if it's a current permit or not. The second thing we looked at when someone parks in the lot is we will issue them 2 passes. They'll expire that same day as the permit's good for access to the bathrooms. It's unrealistic to think someone's going to park there all day and not have access.
Sure, absolutely.
But instead of just saying they're open to the public, if you bought a pass and you show it, much like a member shows their ID card, you will have to show the pass. The only thing we have not been able to solve, and again, it's been a short turn trying to make sure we have all this ready, is what happens if you buy a pass 2 days out and it rains that day. Act of nature. I mean, that was something we discussed and we just kind of scratched our head and said, you know, per the motion, it's
It's the same if I have a pass.
understood. It will create some challenges is all I'm saying.
You said you discussed it, but how about the rain check idea? What were your thoughts on like a rain
No, I
check?
think that's a disaster.
We hadn't gotten.
Is that right in the motion?
You can't do it.
Okay.
Yes,
Can't do
Bill.
it.
I would get that passed out.
Yes, sir.
I would, if you haven't thought about it already, I would suggest very strongly that we get a stamp that we can change the date on it. One of those stamps we can change the date, that you stamp that on there as opposed to handwriting it, because there are folks who are devious that can change that. So, just a thought.
Well, the card reader, but if you didn't, we will affix a stamp at the bottom of each one issued. It will, the reader will recognize what date it is. It'll be written on there, but then we'll have that we'll scan and we'll notify. That's essentially what you're talking about.
Any other questions?
Any chance we could have the rules and regulations that pass on the back of that card?
Sure.
I completely not guaranteed parking.
Yeah, I mean, just what it says there.
Call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I really did want to raise my hand. Pete, IRS matter.
Yes, does everyone have the motion that was in your packets from last Thursday?
Yes.
I have one correction. It's a typo. In the motion itself, the final paragraph of the motion, the third line, the word is, as in is unsuccessful, should be the unsuccessful. The individual who took my motion and made a couple of changes to it had a typo.
Be unsuccessful. Okay.
Be unsuccessful.
I thought I had you.
You didn't have it.
Come on, girls.
Okay.
Do you want me to just
read it and we'll
okay,
move
fine.
on to this.
I'll read the motion and here it goes. Be it hereby resolved that the Board of Directors adopt the policy of funding the actual amount of unrelated business income taxes and any related interest or penalties resulting from taxable income from the association's beach parking operation for years prior to fiscal 2013 by utilizing that dedicated portion of the 5-year funding plan component of the annual assessment, which has been and continues to be collected and accumulated in a separate fund to eliminate the operating fund deficit, which approximated $500,000 at April 30, 2009. Parenthetical. This $4 increase component is currently $12 and was scheduled to max out at $20 in FY 2014. New paragraph. The motion will eliminate not only the original operating fund deficit, but also the increase in that deficit, which will result primarily in FY 2012 as a result of recording the estimated liability which may be incurred as a result of finalizing the beach parking operation tax liability issue for years up through April 30, 2012. Final paragraph. Further, this motion provides for the continuation of the collection and utilization of this component of the annual assessment only for as long as it is required to eliminate the operating fund deficit, which will be increased by the financial consequences of the beach parking tax liability should the association be unsuccessful in its appeal efforts. The adoption of this policy is also intended to satisfy the financial costs without any additional assessment as described herein. And I've set forth the background paragraph and the discussion paragraph. We have had the benefit of having had the opportunity to consider this for some time, and we've had various multiple discussions about this. And so I think maybe rather than review the background and discussion, which we're all familiar with, I do want to reemphasize the one thing I said to you all earlier. In the discussion paragraph, it is my opinion, and Art and I have had conversations with our outside auditors as well, that the current set of facts and circumstances, i.e. the Court of Appeals 3-judge panel ruling, will be such that under generally accepted accounting principles, GAAP, we will be required to take this expense and reflect it in our financial statements for the year, which ends in 2 more weeks, April 30th, 2012. That being the case, it's an unbudgeted item. It's an expense. Even the amounts that we've paid so far, the $119,000, have not been expensed. But we will be required under GAAP to expense it at the time the liability reaches the threshold of FASB 5. You all know what FASB 5 is, right? Okay. But in any event, you don't get to expense it as you pay it. You don't get to expense it when you'd like. Generally accepted accounting principle requires that when you meet the threshold and the criteria set forth in the accounting pronouncements, that under generally accepted accounting principle you are required to take that expense at that time and record that liability. So in consultation with our auditors, as part of this process, the facts and circumstances in my mind undoubtedly will cause us to have to reflect this expense in this year. It's an unbudgeted expense. Even if everything else we do this year breaks even, we'll have a deficit of the amount of the expense that we will book. So people say, well, what is that expense? Well, the answer is we don't know just yet. That'll be determined in consultation with the auditors and the tax attorneys during the year-end closing process, and a number will be arrived at to record the liability. And that liability will be for interest and so forth, Maryland and federal, to the extent that we will be required to book it. So that's my motion. motion, and I'll stop the commentary there and respond to any questions.
Second.
I'll second.
My understanding of this situation, as I said in the last motion, is we are at a point where it is just prudent for us to take the actions, and in some cases, required to by general accounting. My understanding, Pete, is that this motion will allow us to avoid any special assessment, any, in other words, the process that's in place, if we continue it, we can take care of this debt. We do not need to, and these are my words, in quotes, we don't need to send our membership a separate bill for what we now owe the IRS. We can use systems in place we've got to pay the bill.
That is correct. And this motion deals with the funding mechanism. And to just add on to what you said a moment ago, Tom, the original intent of the $30 increase was that $4 carve-out piece was scheduled to be terminated when the $500,000 deficit was satisfied, right? This obviously increases that and will have to run longer than was originally intended. And that's the whole concept here. If you take that $4 component, $4 increase component of that 5-year plan and continue it, but only up to the original, not more than the originally scheduled $20, it's turned to $12 this year. And then just let it run. If it needs to run another couple of years, it's the mechanism by which we will pay. And an important concept here is we're not going to write a check for some sum of money. It's going to be based on payments over time as tax returns are filed, amended returns if they're necessary will be, so the payments will be over time. It's not some sit-down process. And the amount's still yet to be determined based on facts and circumstances of the particular year. So
is the assumption here also, Pete, that we would not borrow the money from anybody else?
Yes, it is. The assumption is that the flow of funds by virtue of the $4 component, increase component, is such that we will not have to borrow money, and as you said earlier, we will not have to have an increase in dues otherwise, or a special assessment, or any such thing, to pay for the ultimate financial consequences of this matter.
Questions?
Just an observation, and that's that because we've already announced that we are appealing the decision for a non-bank hearing, will that affect when we have to take down everything but what we've already paid, $150,000? In other words, for our books for last year when we closed them, we have to take this year, we have to take the 119 down as an expense.
Plus.
And there's a plus. We don't know what the plus is yet.
But that will also have to be,
even though the appeal is out there.
correct.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that we were all clear about that.
Given where we are and the assessment of our potential liability and consideration of FASB 5, yes, in my opinion, and our auditor's opinion, we'll be required to take that expense now. Now, if later on we're successful, that's a whole different, then you...
No, I got that.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that I understood.
Right.
Previous question?
Moved and seconded. Call the question. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed?
I don't want to do this.
I know.
Both of these last votes were something we hope we win, and then we can go back and undo it. The next thing on the agenda, which is where I inserted your change of date.
Oh,
Right at this point.
yeah, what I'm simply requesting is because there's always a conflict of our meeting and the county commissioners meeting, if we want to have a good, proper relationship with Worcester County and the county commissioners, representation from this board should be down there as often as possible. And what I'm requesting, see if it's possible to change it from a Tuesday to a Wednesday or back to a Thursday, where we used to have our regular meeting. So whoever's on the board is going to take care of the county commissioners that time, which more than likely will be me, who'll be able to run this meeting.
So for the purposes of this board, you're referring to May, June, and July.
Yeah.
Changing the dates.
I mean, as I recall it, I understand it, we changed it from Wednesday to Tuesday to accommodate this particular board as proposed, right? And one member having had a conflict on Wednesday.
Correct.
And, Ray, I understand, I think that's a valid reason to change it. However, I think perhaps the time to do that is maybe the next board, because maybe someone will be serving on the board then for whom Wednesday's a problem, or Thursday's a problem, or whatever. We only have 3 more meetings, regularly scheduled meetings, before the end of the fiscal year. And so I, for one, would suggest that you defer that action until a new board is seated, if you will. And then make up the calendar for the following year with that being a consideration, as well as other factors that may not be apparent today.
It's actually only 2 meetings because the next one is
Okay.
Yeah, May 20, we
Are you-
moved
I
May
mean,
to
does
May
that-
27th.
Yeah,
That makes sense.
That makes sense. Of course, the commissioners meet twice a month.
Right.
Yeah.
So whatever might come up having to do with us may not be on that particular
Right.
day, too.
And it's,
Yeah,
as you pointed out, it's only 2 more daytime meetings this year. Okay.
And also in light of,
Well, I think it's a good idea. Don't misunderstand.
I just feel in light of my propensity for moving things to let people be able to attend the meetings has been challenged. So I think we need to stick to the dates.
No, we've released all those dates in advance to the public and the press and so forth. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Good thought. And the next board can decide what dates they're going to meet.
Okay.
And then take that into account. In fact, we did take that into account this year, if I remember the discussion right, in that they do meet twice a month.
Right.
So it was thought that we would be okay, but apparently there's a concern with that. Okay.
So you are withdrawing your motion, sir?
Yes, thank you.
Mr. Thompson, we have some CPI people.
We have one violation. It's in your packet. It's for the fence. And they have made multiple attempts to include mail, phone, have not been able to speak directly with the member. We're requesting permission from the board to move it to the next level, which goes to our attorney to take action.
So moved. Have a second?
I'll second, but I have a question.
Discussion.
Bob, I noticed, unlike a lot of them, the mailing address is the same as the violation address, which suggests to me that the people live there. I don't know that. Is it occupied?
Yes.
All the letters come back undelivered and unclaimed and all that sort of stuff, and there's no contact. Oh, I understand that.
I don't know about it. It's not true.
But people, they do live there.
Well,
I mean, it appears that somebody resides
it's
there.
clear that they're there, yes, sir.
Okay.
Because you receive something in your mailbox, something you have to sign it.
Let me correct. But we've had violations where it's clear that people are not there.
I'll call the question on this. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we've got, Bill, where are we on the John O'Connor? I don't have signatures
Right.
on the form.
I have had no communication from Brian Roberts, the chairman of the Budget Finance Committee, and I'm not confident in doing this unless I talk to Brian.
Yeah, I mean, our process
She's got
is that
signatures
it's,
that I don't have.
does somebody have signed copy?
Yeah, I do.
Mine was.
I'll get one signed by John
This is this one,
O'Connor,
right?
but I don't know. I know.
I
Okay, well then I did.
Wait, whoa.
I was he that one that didn't have it. This is what I was given. You understand what I'm saying? So now-
Okay.
Okay.
It's in my packet.
Okay. We're good then.
I'm special.
We're good?
Yeah.
All right, well, you're the advisor.
Yeah.
Okay.
Then we're good.
This is signed off by 2 people.
Yeah. With the one that's in my packet.
All right.
We have the
signed
original
off.
with the signatures. You don't get the originals in the packets as they come in with copies. So I kept the original with the signature in the packet. It's all been signed off on.
Nice. We're
Mr.
good.
Wentworth,
The
we're
chairperson
good.
and the
Concur.
board
I concur. We're good.
Okay, we're good. Any objections to John O'Connor? Nope. None. Okay. Next, we have, and these do have all the signatures on the copies we've got. This is for Bill Sieg to be on the comprehensive plan.
I absolutely concur with
You
that.
concur with that?
Good man.
Any objections? Okay, Bill Sieg is approved. And anything else for the good of the cause? Yes, sir.
OPA members who attend our board meetings on a regular basis have an opportunity to have an opinion on how well Mr. Terry runs our board meeting. And they titled that opinion, opinions are like noses, everyone has one. But those same folks are not in a position to see how Mr. Terry shows his leadership on a daily basis in directing this board in various and sundry situations that we have to deal with, in dealing with the general manager, dealing with the public, and dealing with our legal team. And I, one, give Mr. Terry the most confidence, leadership ability, and how he manages the activities of the OPA Board of Directors.
I agree.
I agree as well.
Ditto.
Here, here.
Is that a motion?
No.
Point of order, I think public comment has already been completed.
I just want to say thank you to Teresa and to the Environmental and Natural Assets Committee and the 15 or so sailing students from Salisbury University who participated in Earth Day on Saturday, and we picked up a lot of trash from, and as well as community members who did Ocean Pines. We picked up a lot of trash, and we got some treasures, and Dan and Pete actually got special golf balls on the beach, so they're special. And everybody did a really good job. And Teresa coordinated the whole thing, T-shirts and everything. Thank you.
The language on my golf ball is Spanish, so this sucker's been for a
At least there's no curse words.
Motion to adjourn.
I found $1 too.
Seconded.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Anybody who wants a copy of that lengthy motion, it's here.